Welcome back to my channel. My name is Avia, and on this channel, I share my van life journey while traveling in faith. In today's video, we are visiting Oyotunji African village, and someone, a local, told me about this place, and after looking it up, to my surprise, that this African village is an independent village with their own ruling system, their own schools, their own libraries. They supply all of their own needs here. Not only that, this is the only African village in North America that has kept the Yoruba traditions. And that resonates with me because back when I was going to college, I took a cultural awareness class, and one of my assignments, which was one of my toughest assignments ever, was to find my heritage. And being an African American woman, that was really difficult for me. As my instructor back in the day said, none of us are from this land. So the challenge was to find your heritage in the land of your ancestors. And all I knew was West Africa at that time. But after research upon research upon research, sweat, tears, migraines, because it was so challenging, because Africa is a huge continent with many different tribes.
And she just is lost.
What
Listen
I was
to
able
her.
to conclude from
She
my
ain't found herself
research
yet.
on my papers, I associated the Yoruba culture with some of the traditions and things that were taught in my home. So today we are going to tour the Oyotunji African village, and I always say, come to these things with an open mind. It's all about a learning experience. So let's go check them out. Okay, guys, we are here at the front entrance and greeted by this beautiful lady. So we're going to get checked in and take our tour.
In the name of His Highness, Efunchola, peace, welcome to the sacred Yoruba village in North America, built by the priests of the voodoo cults as a tribute to our ancestors. These priests preserve the customs, laws, and religion of the African race. Welcome to our land,
Awesome.
So you are now leaving the United States.
I see that.
Ashe.
I read Ashe, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Since 1950, right?
Yes. Well, we started, we're 50 years old, 51.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So as you look around, you'll see a lot of art. Most of our artwork was done by the first Oba himself. So we do not alter it. We touch it up. You see, this is market area. This is what we call the Cola Nut Cafe. This is like our meeting space, or where we convene. We eat breakfast here together. We get ready for our daily, endeavors. Here we have our coffee. Meat, get the plan for the day. And right here we have the oil horseman. You can
The oil
horseman. We do this is where we do like any celebrations or any celebratory things. Like we're about to have a naming ceremony. So this is where we set up to do those.
I love the paint on the floor. So colorful.
So it's really awesome. Like I said, this is our communal area that you're walking through right now. As you see, we have, as you're gonna see the leopard all throughout the village. Our totem is in time the leopard takes the field. So that's our motto for Oyotunji. So you're gonna see leopards everywhere.
Okay. Leopards take the.
In time the leopard takes the field.
Okay. That's the same thing as the lion?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we have this is what we call our Kiesi board. This is where we post information about different events and things like that. Anything that should be community knowledge is what's posted here.
How many people live on the land?
Well, right now it's about maybe 30.
30.
Mm-hmm. So yes, and also one of the most important things we post here is our reading of the week. We do have a what we call a dafa by Babalawo. It's done for our community every week.
Okay.
So that's one of the major things that's posted there, because if it's community knowledge, then it's important to know.
Okay.
And right here we just have a little bit of history on our founding father. Obafuntila Osejumen Adefumi the first. He was actually born Walter Eugene King in 1928, October 1928. He, as a child, he went on a search for the African religion. Mm-hmm. He was always interested in religion, and he went to church one day and he said, I noticed that everybody else's God kind of favors them. So where's the black God? And the preacher told him, well, there's no such thing. So at that point, even from a child, he went on his search for the African God. So he found, he did Islam. He started the Temple of Shango in Harlem. And he was actually very much responsible for the Dashiki movement in Harlem.
Okay. I got a few of those.
So, like I said, he also was a dancer. He danced with Catherine Dunham. He was participating in the World's Fair. He was one of the first people bringing African culture to the World's Fair.
Wow.
So when he did the World's Fair, he's out there in the dashikis and the clothes,
they're like, what?
Doing readings. So he
That's beautiful.
He actually got initiated to Obatala in Matanzas, Cuba. So he made the priesthood of Obatala Matanzas, Cuba, and also he received a sword of state from the Oni of Ife in Nigeria. So that's what crowned him the king of all Yoruba people in North America.
Oh, wow.
So that's what gave him that title.
Wow.
And that's how he achieved that title. But right here we have Eshu. Eshu is one of the major Orisha. He is the messenger god and the god of communication. He rules the planet. Excuse me, sorry. He rules the planet Mercury. His number is 3 and 21. As Eshu Elegba is so important that every Orisha has their own Elegba. So we want to make sure Elegba is appeased because he is directly responsible for carrying your messages. So he's also a trickster. He represents duality. So as you can come as an old man or a young man, you know what I mean? He can come as a woman or a man. He can come as a rich person or a poor person. That's why they say you always treat people with kindness, because you never know where you're going to run up on that shoe. So that's one of the major stories of that shoe. You have any questions?
Does he go by any other names?
Hold on. Let me go back to y'all real quick.
So we want to make sure Elegba is appeased because he is directly responsible for carrying your messages. So he's also a trickster. He represents duality. So as you can come as an old man or a young man, you know what I mean? He can come as a woman or a man. He can come as a rich person or a poor person. That's why they say you always treat people with kindness, because you never know where you're going to run up on that shoe. So that's one of the major stories of that shoe. You have any questions?
Does he go by any other names or?
Papa Legba.
I've heard of that name before. Papa Legba.
Well, that's Legba shoe. He takes offerings. Eshu eats everything. The only thing Eshu does not really eat is chocolate.
Okay.
But any other offering, any other offering you choose to give him, he'll take it.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I say, he's the one that's saluted first. Mm-hmm. So with Eshu, what we do, he's the only one that we don't put our head to the ground for. With Eshu, what we do is you spin around 3 times. And you greet him. And like I said, if you want to leave him something, he takes whatever. Okay.
We'll spin around 3 times.
That used to be a lot easier when I was younger.
You
I'm
did just
dizzy.
fine.
I'm dizzy, girl.
I
I'm
got
dizzy.
you.
And if you look over here, this is our schoolhouse. This is where many of us went to school. I went to school here and I taught here. So most of us graduated from this high school right here, from this school.
Have you been here all your life?
I've been here since I was 10,
Wow.
and I'm 43. I
Oh,
mean, I
wow.
always leave, but I always come back. You know, I would be like, I'm tired of y'all. And I'd be like, no.
You always leave and come back. I'm tired of y'all.
I'd be like, come
Yeah,
on
I
back.
bet.
But if you look around, I always point this out. If you look around,
Right,
you'll see
bro.
what's the
Crazy.
common
Wait till you hear me
theme
read
amongst
it.
this area? What's the one thing you notice?
Mm-mm.
The statues
Crazy.
of men and women, or is it both
They're
women?
all women.
Oh, yeah.
So I over understood that we do have a king, of course, but the Oba knew that at the center of most societies and bases, the women are the one that uphold the town.
Yes.
The morals, the culture is normally the women that hold those laws in place.
Because we teach the children.
Exactly. So he had enough sense to know that. They say only a woman can pull the ears of the king. A man can advise him, but only a woman can pull his ears. So,
That's powerful.
Is there a semblance with the Ankh? Or
you know, the O'Shea, the Ankh, and the lightning bolt, a lot of that, you see a lot of Shango energy.
Yeah.
So that double-headed axe, you know that's Shango. You see that lightning bolt, you know that's Shango also. But Shango represents royalty.
Yes.
So a lot of times amongst this area right here, you'll see a lot of Shango symbolism because of what Shango represents as royalty. They say Shango is the closest to the crown as far as the spiritual energy. Makes sense? Oh, and that's the Royal African area is back there. This is also where Oba Waja is interned. Back there, we cannot take people back there because this is where our king lives with his wife and children. I'm kidding.
he wants to take a tour too.
Walking with us.
But right here we have the Royal Obara. This is where the king's ancestors are in state. Like we said, we are very much ancestral based religion and culture. We understand that if you are standing tall, it's because you're standing on the shoulders of those who walk before you.
Exactly.
So we definitely venerate our ancestors. He is a descendant of the Adefumi and Aladahunu line. So these are where his people are set up in state.
Nice.
Any questions?
No.
No.
Because nowadays, when our family members die, we we just
Bury them and try to
don't really,
Yeah. Well, as you see, we're entering Obatala Temple. And you want to see a lot of people. You see how we do our people. They are right here with us. So. So right here, this town, we believe that everybody has a male and a female energy, a yin and a yang. Even in certain towns, certain areas have a yin and a yang. This is Obatala's town. This town is the male energy that rules this town is Obatala. The female energy is Oshun.
Okay.
So just a little bit of history on the area and the people themselves. But Obatala is the god of the head. His number is 8. His colors are white. The planet he rules is Jupiter, and the energy he rules is Sagittarius. Obatala is the god of creation. Like I said, patience, forethought. His totem is the snail.
Right,
So that
brother.
tells you
Check
how
this out.
Obatala kind of moves. Okay. So he's slow to anger, but if he gets angry, it's a whole other energy. So, but like I said, Obatala is the god of the head. He's responsible for creating man. And upon him creating man, he was, creating man. And here along came.
Sorry. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Okay, let me turn that off.
No, but he was creating, man, and along, of course, came Eshu, and his trickster energy, and he says, "Oh, Watala, you're working so hard. You gotta be thirsty." Watala was like, "You know what? Now that I think about it, I'm a little parched." So Eshu gives a Watala palm wine, but he's making people, but he's drinking this palm wine, not realizing that he's actually getting drunk, and he starts to make misformed people. So people that are born with physical deformities are sacred to Obatala. So, when anybody we know that is at that caliber, you're automatically Obatala's child, and you're automatically treated special.
You're sacred if you have a
Any questions
disability,
about
like
that?
India, huh? They look up to them as God.
And as we go on, we're entering. This is the temple of Shango. Shango was the sixth king of Oyo.
Redskin, you feel
Shango's
me?
energy
You feel me?
is
How can they be doing
anything
this?
that is
Listen, and we have the
phenomenal.
rights to do this. I don't want to get into it because I swear y'all don't be listening to me half the time. But we have the right to do this exact thing, the same thing. Like literally. Like it's so easy.
And audacious.
Anybody interested, make sure y'all get at me, Sistarsoulmaneradio@gmail.com. I am definitely doing some things right now in the private. Make sure you get with me.
Shango is the energy that tells us, by my hand, I crown myself king. Shango was actually, they say Shango took over the Ilumale, which took over the heavens.
Yep,
Because
Seabrook,
before
South
Shango
Carolina, right after
existed,
North Carolina.
these energies always existed. But when Shango came along, they kind of forgot about Jakuta and Heviosa. They started worshiping Shango. So he was actually a documented man. So Shango is the ego and the sheer will and audacity to do anything. That's Shango energy. I don't know if y'all know any Shango people, but you'll meet some today and you're gonna be like,
We really don't.
I
We don't
see.
even listen to the video. I really wanted y'all
They
to
do it
see this
all.
shit,
I'm
what it
telling you.
is. Hold on.
But
I'm gonna get
like I said,
information on this. But let me let this play for a minute, real quick, while I take this call.
Shango is
I'll be
that
right
energy.
back, guys.
His actual element is a tree, the base of a big tree. Is where a lot of times Shango is worshipped at. Shango is the drum. He's the dance. Shango is they say he the first one to start the party and the last one to leave. That's the energy of Shango, which of course got him in trouble several times. But but he was married to Oya, Oba, and Oshun all at the same time.
Wow.
So he was a king with three wives. But like I say, he's also philanthropy. Shango is one that will donate, one that will give their time and energy to a cause. But you have to have a cause. You can't just say, "Come on, let's do some foolishness."
Yeah.
Shango people ain't gonna go for it. I said, any questions about Shango?
No, that was good.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna introduce you to some people. Right here we have Mama Keke. Mama Keke came from Cuba. She actually met our original Abba in Harlem. And she was directly responsible for helping with the dashiki movement and the movement of, that uprising of us coming back and finding ourselves in our culture. So she was directly responsible for that. She lived to be a ripe age of 91.
Wow.
So, like, she's one of those people. Her priest name was Oshun Funke. But yeah, she was a priestess of Oshun. Like I said, I remember her, but I didn't have much experience with her, like on a personal level. But I do remember seeing her as a kid, being around, So one of our people, one of our founding members, and helped the Abba. And right here we have Chief Wolawo. Chief Wolawo was an Obatala priest. He came from Detroit with the Abba. Now these people left professional jobs. Most of them came from the city. This was a swamp. So what you see, these professional people cleared trees by hand, did things like that, set up their own rules and institutions of government. So it's a accomplishment.
How were they able to do that in the United States? I mean,
The sort of state
to get like their sovereign, was that the word I'm looking for?
sovereignty.
Yeah.
The sword estate from Benny.
Really?
Mhm. And of course some paperwork and some, you
And the
know,
United States said okay?
like we are our own separate entity. Like
But-
the cops can't come past the gate
Wow.
unless somebody walks them in. So if something happens, and God forbid you got to call the cops, you got to wait for the Alba to go out there and tell the police that they come in. But they can't just come in here. We have our own laws. We have our own system of, I don't want to say justice, but we have our own system of justice. We deal with things. I mean, thank God we've never had nothing major happen. But, when things do happen, we do have a system of government that handles it. So we have our boni, which is like the law and order, Mm-hmm. Okay. And right here we have Chukwulaitan. Chukwulaitan was he was our math teacher. Chukwulaitan was also the first Alagba we had. So he was responsible for the ancestral veneration part. So he was a great guy. I had personal experience with him. I used to live on his compound. So I didn't learn nothing in math class because I just didn't get it. So I just decided I was going to be his friend. And he rocked with it. He was like, well, you about to get an F, but yeah. You come chill at the house, though, but we give you an F. You don't get it. And this is Shiva Wadekun. Shiva Wadekun was a Yamada priest and also a master orator. He was responsible for a lot of the songs we sing now to Orisha, linguists, with us learning Yoruba and things like that. Any questions? No. But it's good to see. I think it's more like the way we treat our ancestors. I think it's more tangible. And the fact that they're above the ground, it just does something different. So
It's
I
like
come
they're
in here
still
every
here.
morning and I say, "Hey guys, what y'all need? Want some coffee?" So we do our little rituals every day with our ancestors. That's it.
Sure.
Shenanigans. If I don't know the answer, I'll find somebody.
Well, hi there, little fella. Hi. Shade.
Olokun, his colors are blue and coral. His number is 4. Olokun represents psychic ability, mysticism, dreams. Olokun is the god of the third eye, Oduneta. So any kind of psychic ability or things of that nature, that's what he goes with. So also Olokun is said to be the god of the African Americans because we traveled over many waters to get to America. And Olokun's element is the bottom of the sea. So that depth of subconsciousness, things like that, that's what Olokun is. They say no one knows what lies at the bottom of the sea. But Olokun is also the wealth from the bottom of the sea. So, yeah. Any questions? No. Well, he rules the ocean in conjunction with his sister Yemanja. Yemanja is her element is the top, like I said, the top of the sea. Also, she is the mother of many. Yemanja is said to be everybody's mother. Yemanja is the actual what the baby is held in. I don't know why I just blanked out on that word. I should know that. I got 2 kids. Yeah, the womb.
Wow.
Yeah, she's the womb. No, why that was blank. But she represents also, like I said, motherhood. But she also Alafia, Wakijo, Go, Kango, Kango. she also represents big mama energy.
Mm.
So a lot of times, Yemanja is said to be the masculine side of femininity, but she was always strong. They say Yemanja was the only woman that could carry Shango on her back.
Mm.
Yemanja is the one that gives blessings in abundance. So she gives you everything big. So Yemanja represents big business, industry, things like that. And also, of course, motherhood. So she's that element of motherhood, and also the element of women working together and women being able to raise children and have communities together. So she's that part of femininity.
Takes a village to raise a child.
Yes, that's definitely a Yamaja concept. Any questions about Yamaja?
And you said she's connected to Big Mama energy.
Yeah, very much. But she's the energy that make you get right. When Big Mama come in the room, you might sit up a little straighter. You might pull your dress down. You're gonna make sure you got your stuff together, because Big Mama in the space. She in the place.
I had a reading a few months ago, and the lady told me that my energy was connected to Big Mama energy.
Okay, so you might
That
be.
scared the heck out of
You
me.
might
I
be a
was like,
child of Yemanja.
I mean, I didn't understand. I still don't understand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just interesting.
Yeah, but that's definitely her energy. So that's probably what they're seeing around you is Yemanja.
It's interesting.
Okay. Any questions?
I could be fierce too, I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah, right.
But I could be nice as a feather.
That part. And right here we have our Iyalode. She was our first Iyalode, which was the head of the Women's Society. So she's in turn here also. She actually came from Buffalo, New York. Now, this elder I've had experience with. I remember she couldn't have been no bigger than 4'11", but she was definitely that epitome of Big Mama, because when she came into place, everybody got some get right. She ain't play music at all. So that's what I remember about her the most. And also having that energy where if you ever had a concern, she was never too busy to listen. So that, she was the person you can bring your problems to, and she'll try her best to work it out. Yeah. Just like Big Mama.
They go with that Big Mama energy shit. That's right. Oshun. They got a whole organization doing the same thing in Florida, guys. I forgot about this till I seen this. The brother put me on to this, the one that's in South Carolina, but there's an Oshun energy and tribe that they are like literally under in Florida. Like, really. I'm gonna read this to you guys so you can understand exactly what they're talking about. The Kingdom of Oyotunji, an African village, was founded in 1970. Isn't it amazing? This was found right after the death of Martin Luther King, right after the death of indigenous rights for the indigenous people, right after Wounded Knee, right after that, they formulated this, right? Isn't that just amazing? But that's a whole nother story. Let's go. In Sheldon, South Carolina, and I put North Carolina, I'm so sorry, guys, by Walter Eugene King. It is a religious and cultural community for African American practitioners of the West African Yoruba faith, This is just like Moors, just like the Moors temples have a faith and a religion that they're based off of. And this is the same thing this is. This is off of a faith, a practitioner of the Yoruba tribes, Orisha, so on and so forth, right? It says that for African American practitioners of the West American Yoruba faith, at its height, the village was a home for over 200 people and still is. I'm sure it's still growing. Along the road approaching the village of in Sheldon, South Carolina, a sign is posted in both Yoruba and English. Listen to this. This is their sign. You are leaving the United States. You are leaving the United States, going into a sovereign village. Sovereign. Why is it that they have sovereignty, but you can't have sovereignty? Do you know you have the right to have sovereignty? You know we have the right to have sovereignty on our line. That's a whole nother story. But if they can do it, why couldn't you? Man, y'all don't be hearing me. You are leaving the United States and you are entering the Yoruba Kingdom. We had many kingdoms. There was 4 great nations in this area at one point in time before we were invaded. And these people came upon us. Who? These Black natives. Yeah, the Black natives. That's who these people were. In the name of His Highness King Afantala, peace. Welcome to the sacred Yoruba village of Oyotunji. The only village in North America, the only village that's in North America, built by priests of the Orisha voodoo cults. Built by priests of the Orisha voodoo cults as a tribute to our ancestors. Oh, does that mean you're doing tributations and sacrifices? Well, she just showed y'all they do sacrifices and things. Does that mean you are helping and as being culprits for practicing voodoo and sorcery against us? Because if you're practicing the faith of the Yoruba tribe and you're practicing the faith of the Orishas, then you would not be practicing what was of the American Indian. So you are going against us spiritually and practicing certain rituals and things that go against the American people right on our soil. Damn, that's a damn bad place to be. These priests preserve the customs, laws, and religion of the African race. The Oyotunji village was founded in 1970 by Walter Eugene King as a religious and cultural community for African American practitioners of the West Yoruban faith. Orishas, again, referring to the West African Yoruba Kingdom of Oya, now rising in a new form near the South Carolina seashore, right on the seashore of the indigenous. Damn, they might be standing right on the damn top of your ancestors' head while they were standing and marching around and doing these rituals and, you know, doing these sacred dances and things that they're bringing from their culture and bringing it onto yours, into your South Carolina land, right? How many of your ancestors in South Carolina near this area? How many of your ancestors may be buried under this damn ground while they're continuously stomping around doing rituals and shit on their head? Y'all think about that? Let's keep reading this. Pretty much. So, right. It says King Detroit, a native, began studying Afro-Haitian and ancient Egyptian traditions as a teenager. He was cultivated and definitely he was a freaking nut. Listen to this. Further influenced by his contact with Catherine Dunham dance troupe in New York City, an African-American modern dance troupe that drew from many cultures within the African diaspora. Using the African diaspora, here they go. During a trip to Cuba in 1959, King became the first African-American to be initiated into the Orisha priesthood and became known as Afantala Osa Jiman Adafanmi. After his return to the United States, he formed the Yoruba Temple in Harlem in 1960, the first one to participate in the World's Fair, as they told you, in New York, right? The temple committed to preserving African traditions. The temple committed to preserving African traditions within an American context was the culture and the religious forerunner of the Oyotunji. Let me say it right. The Oyotunji village, if I'm saying it as proper as I can, right? So we're looking at the fantastic form of Pan-Africanism right here, right on the base of North Carolina, using rituals, using a whole entire kingdom that they have set up on the ancestors that may even be a part of your bloodline. You literally are walking on their graves, literally like not even give a damn, have no respect at all, right? Just bringing all their culture and everything over here, their laws and everything, right, to be practiced on our land. How disrespectful is that? With the rise of Black nationalism in the 1960s, King began to envision the construction of a separate African-American nation that would institutionalize and commemorate the ancestral traditions of the Africans, not ours, but of Yoruba, right? So in June of 1970, he fulfilled his vision with the creation of the Oyotunji African village. It was during this time that he also established the new lineage of the priesthood, a new lineage. He added on a new lineage unto the Orisha religion, right? The Orisha voodoo. And it was to emphasize the traditions of African roots. Today, over 300 priests have been initiated into this lineage of the African theological and the African Theological Arch Ministry that was founded by the Osigman Adafami in 1966, now serves as the umbrella organization for the entire damn village. Y'all hear this? And mind you, this is fun. Wait, I'll get to that after this one. Hold on. Let me keep going. It is early years that the village was home to so many as 200 people. Today, its residential community consists of less than 10 African-American families governed by the Oba King in the Yoruba language and the community's appointed council. Each family is committed to the teachings of the Yoruba tradition, which include a religious understanding of the words as comprised primarily of the energies of the supreme being Aladumar, the Orishas, and the ancestral spirit. The religious word is maintained spiritually through rituals, chants. Listen, it is maintained. Maintained means what? To keep it up. Maintained means what? To keep something fresh so that it's able to go on, so that it has a stable foundation, right? That is what maintaining this is, right? So maintaining what? Spirituality through rituals, through chants, through music, through offerings, through initiations, and through annual ceremonies, right? So they're doing this continuously on your ancestral soil. Now, in 2005, I ain't gonna say the name, the 14 of 22 children of this man was appointed after his father's death as the king. Now more than 40 years old, the Kingdom of in the Village continues to sustain and promote an appreciation for the depth of culture, beautiful art, grandeur of customers, and resilient history of the New World Yoruba, in the United States. Educational programs and resources are produced through the African Theological Arch Ministry and disseminated through the institution's network of priests, priestesses, and their professionals. They host festivals and traders bazaar. Y'all heard them mention how he was the first to bring this to the World's Fair, right? They produce films and books and offer spiritual services such as naming ceremonies and coming of age rites. What do y'all think of that? What do you guys think of that? Let me check with the chat. Hold on. Let me get this other document pulled up and I'll be right back with you guys in the chat in a second. Tell me your thoughts real quick. Just let me know. What y'all feeling about this nonsense, huh? What do y'all think about this? I'm going to show y'all something. All these Pan-Africans, right? We're talking about Pan-Africans. Who funds stuff like this, huh? Who would fund something like this? Let me see. Let me find this dear article. I should have had this pulled up, but I didn't think I was going to show it. But hold on a second, guys. I want to show you something else in this since I brought that up about who the funding is. Hold on. Hold on. I got to show that before I go on. Hold on a second. Dang, I hate when I lose something I'm looking for. Hold on. I got too much stuff pulled up, y'all. Too many things I want to do. I had 2 different other lives planned today, and one this morning. Didn't get into it. Got caught up on an important call. Then when I went to do another build, I said, let me just do it on this because I got shorter time. Couldn't do that. Like literally, this is crazy. All right. Now, why is it not pulling the project up? I wanted to show you the project. It's showing this information, which is actually the same damn thing. Yeah, it's just kind of showing. Hold on, guys, because I want to pull up this pluralism project. Let me try. Just do a fresh search, like I'm just looking. Pluralism project, Harvard. Oh man, I'm misspelling stuff. Oh my gosh, Harvard. Let's see. Go back. What is it? Oyotunji, Tunji. Village. Let me see if it pulls up like this. Hold on. Pull this project. Is this it? Yep. It was on there at first, actually. Check this out. I want y'all to see who's funding this. Now, we know Pan-Africanism. It was right on the page, too. Pan-Africanism, just go back to it. Pan-Africanism is funded by what? The colleges and stuff, right? Now, guess who's funding this through the Pluralism Project, Harvard University, the Pluralism Project. It is funded through the Pluralism Project of Harvard University. This whole thing is, look, y'all see? Right here, Pluralism Project. I was trying to show y'all. I don't know why it's not pulling up this other document I have. It's in my email. Now I can't find it. So let me see if I can find it here. See if it's the Afro-Caribbean traditions, essays from Africa to America. Like, this shit is just so crazy. The servitude of spirits, voodoo. I want to read some of this, but I'm just going to drop this in the chat for you guys. Okay. I want you guys to take time to check it out yourselves. It's so much information on there. It's like absurd. Peace, twin. Peace, twin. Let me check on my chat real quick. People coming in I haven't seen. Peace, love, and bliss to everybody. I have been over there on the other side. Was not ignoring you guys. You know, you're awesome. You're everything. Right. They bugging out. They bug the F up. Period. Yeah, what would they say, sis? Huh? What would they say? I wonder too. Yeah, sounds like a cue for me, bro. Like, y'all need to get goals. Like, go on, take that somewhere. Yep, a CIA app. Oh, I got some documentation on that, sis. Don't get me started. That's a whole nother subject. Sacrifices and sex rituals. Yes, remember I told you guys that the sex rituals actually have the strongest power. Peace, sis. How you doing, babe?
Peace, peace.
Girl, tell us about your experience after the visit. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you were in the chat to act. Somebody actually has been to this crazy ass place. Your thoughts, sis. I'm just gonna listen real quick. Go ahead, babe.
Greetings to everyone in the chat. It's good to be here, sis, and thank you for sharing the Mama T.
Yes,
that was awesome. That was awesome. Well, my first experience was back when I was in the Pan-African spell. Probably about 2013. I was also in the RBG. You know, I was trying to find myself, like the most of us have been trying to do for the last 20 odd years. And now I'm finally, you know, I did all my genealogy, and I do not believe that story no more. They've been lying. They lied, and our people done died. So my first experience, I was with this queen who had some land in Ghana. I met her at one of the festivals in Texas that the RBGs had. And she had connections with this Oba at this Oyotunji village. So I was doing some podcasting with her, being her host, because she had a little session going on where she was trying to get people to move to Ghana with her on her land. So we went to Oyotunji village and we stayed there and we did a live podcast there. She was also trying to set up there as, you know, frequently so she can just broadcast from there all the time. So it was kind of like a test run. But I met Oba. I smoked some weed with him and he parties and everything. He's a young man. He's not an older guy. He's young. But when I first met him, it didn't dawn on me that when I was a young girl, my mother, who had been dealing with this guy who was in the Pan-African situation back in the 80s, when I went there, it dawned on me like, I think I met somebody that's got something to do with this. So I called my mother. And she said, oh, yeah, remember when this African king came and he had his 2 wives and we went to this ceremony and all of that? I was like, yeah. She was like, well, that's that guy's daddy.
What?
Yes, girl. So I was like, okay. So then when I told the queen that I was with, I told her that and she was like, oh, okay, well, you should just, you know, you should come with me again, you know, when I go again. And I was like, I don't know, because when my mama told me about that experience, you know, that wasn't a good thing. because she actually got out of that situation, out of the Pan-African movement when that
Okay.
king and everybody came, because
And
she
you
didn't
still
like.
came back to it, sis. Hold on 1 second.
Yes,
You
I
said your
did.
mom got out of it. And wait a minute, I just got to
Well,
backtrack to what you said.
I went into my own, I became an adult. This was like when I was 16, when my mama was dealing with it. I became an adult, living my own life, had my own kids, and then trying to, find, that's when everybody was getting into the Black Power stuff, when Facebook first started off and all of that. So that's when I found
all of that. I remember, yes.
Yeah, okay. So I got back into it then. So then the second time I went, I was working in the area and I didn't want to pay for no hotel. So I was like, oh, I remember I came down here and they got rooms that you can rent and stuff. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go over there and see if they still doing that. So the second time I went was when I got creeped out. I had already left the Pan-African movement, had moved on to finding my own ancestors and figuring out what's going on with America and us being from the natives from America and all of that. So I don't know if I walked into something that was some spirits that was like, oh, you know the real knowledge or what, but it creeped me out. But I did see it. I seen all the statues and the people in the village and all of that stuff. But at the time, it had gotten destroyed from like a storm or something that had hit. So they were rebuilding and everything. So let me go back to the first time when we did the podcast. When we did the podcast on the land, I met a couple of the whatever they call them, men that are under the Oba. And one of the men happened to he was an extra for the Nat Turner movie that had come out. Remember that movie?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So he was on the show and she was interviewing him. So I found that kind of interesting, that he was in that movie representing Oyotunji. They came to film that part in the movie. So if you ever watch that movie again, go back and you'll see at the beginning when they show he was in this native area, native part of his life where he was talking about being African and all of that. Yeah. They were on the land filming that. And the guy that was in the scene was from Oyotunji village, a member of the village or what have you. But I have met the Oba twice. And yeah, it's weird. I like the concept and the idea, but the second time when I went, I was asking too many questions, I guess, because by then I had found myself and I was trying to figure out how can me and my people do the same thing, like you were saying, become sovereign because this is our land and I ain't no goddamn African. So he didn't like my tone this time. And he kept asking me, well, why don't you wear your African garb anymore? And all of that. And I told him the truth. I said, I don't believe that I'm from Africa.
Period.
I've never sat at the foot of my grandmother or my great grandmother and they said anything about being no fucking African. So he kind of got a little ticked off, I guess. And I don't know if he tried to set some fucking spirits out on me or what, but girl, I was so goddamn scared.
Probably did.
I left in the middle. Me and my daughter, girl, we left in the middle of the night. That's how bad it was. I'm telling you, them animals and shit was calling and coughing and shit. And it was raining. Girl, I jumped in my car about 3 o'clock in the morning. Was like, I'm getting the fuck up out of here because I don't know if I'd have made this motherfucker mad and he didn't set off some shit.
Right. Exactly.
But I had to come and tell y'all about this because I just happened to see you on live and I never catch you live, sis. And I was so happy. I was like, ancestors again. They don't never fail you. I got to go tell my sister about this place because the idea is genuine. It's like, it's what we should be doing right now. Sis, we as indigenous people, we should be doing the same thing. Yes. And he is, the daddy was an op. That's what my mama said.
Yep.
She said he was a CIA op. And they gave him the right to do that. And it was just to infiltrate the truth.
Yep. He's saying, see, you see, it's funded, sis.
Yes.
That's why I just put this up by who? Harvard Institute.
Exactly.
So we know that these are the fathers of Pan-Africanism. Right? As soon as I seen that, I'm like, wow, this shit crazy. It'd be right in our face. Yes, bro. All the time. Them African spirits, right, sis?
Yes,
That part.
girl. That shit scared the shit out of me. And I tripped off the first time when I went. I wasn't scared. I just knew I was in the place to be. And, oh, this is my people. I'm supposed to be here. But, honey, when I tell you I had got the light and went back, and I guess, that American woman come up out of me when I come the second time, and I couldn't hold my tongue for nothing.
Good.
And
Let
I
him know.
swear he set some shit loose, but I don't think he that powerful. I just think my own
Yeah, we have.
ancestors
That's
probably was
funny you
talking to
said
me.
that. This, not to interrupt you, but when you just said that,
It's okay.
reminded me of something that happened to me some years back. You know how like you have people that you think you're friends, but they may have a little jealousy or animosity or whatever. You don't really see it. You might see little stuff, but you don't pay no attention. I had a friend of mine that came back and told me a girl actually was trying to put roots on me. And she said, girl, you ain't gonna be able to put no roots on Kim. She too strong for that.
That's
Sure enough,
right.
the shit never came to me, never did nothing to me. But she told me she knew about it. She said she had to come tell me just so I know that the girl had put roots on me, girl. Or she tried to put some kind of roots on me. That shit can't stick to me, baby. I'm planted in the real soil. Don't play with me.
Exactly. I thank you for letting me come and speak, and everyone's time and energy of listening to me.
I appreciate you, sis. Definitely feel free to come up on any subject. Just say, sis, drop the link. I don't care. I usually just don't drop it because, I always be trying to get through stuff. You know how I be rambling my ass off.
Yes. You be reading so much, you probably be having a headache all them words.
Girl, I be so tired sometimes, but it's like, it's so much, sis. I have to get out. And it's like, it's so much stuff that's still going to blow your mind. I still ain't got out yet. Besides the stuff I be putting out, I just don't be having enough time. It's 3 things I was going to talk about today, sis. Literally, this is the 3rd one. But the 2 things, I was going to do one this morning, then do another one. I said, okay, I'm going to do it on this because I got such and such amount of time. I said, okay. Then I said, damn, let me just do this one real quick. So I knocked this one out. It's crazy, sis. It's so much stuff we got to be open our minds up to just so we see the shit, because the lies and the sorcery is right in our face. And this is how we know it's sorcery, because we know it's BS. That part.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
And this part right here says, if you don't got to jump down if you don't want to, because I'm going to share another book, right? But if you want, you can jump right in the chat, baby. I appreciate you coming up.
All right.
Good. But I'm finna show this book. We're gonna get off of this, guys. I dropped the link so y'all can go and check that out for yourself, so y'all can see it. Now I want y'all to see. You know how I be talking about the Black natives, guys. Okay, I'm finna show you guys part of the. We've been watching this for the past like 2 weeks. I've been putting this info out. If y'all staying tuned, y'all getting it. Now check this out. This here is about the cotton plantations, right? The cotton plantation, the landlord and tenant on the cotton plantation. Let's talk about it real quick. So the cotton plantation, that was just like a hustle for anybody. Anybody could be getting cotton. Cotton was everywhere. And it started growing and growing. When they start making it more tradable, right? It started growing and growing and growing because more people were planting it, trying to get more stock. They had a few frontiers people, a few homesteaders come in. See, them homesteaders, they came in doing stuff they ain't had no damn business doing, as y'all know. They the Black natives, the pioneers, the frontiersmen. They're setting up the land, plotting just like the reservation. Remember, the pioneers, man. And when you hear about homesteading is the same thing as a reservation, guys. It's the same dang thing. I done showed y'all so many documents. I don't care what nobody tell y'all that's different. Y'all seen the shit for yourself. This is even more verification on the cotton was more as farming. Now, when I was in New York before coming to Texas, they used to have people that would come to the farm. People would come from Jamaica, Africa, different islands, St. Thomas, St. Lucia, Barbados. They used to go to this one particular area in New York where they had apple farms and plums and peaches and certain things they had. They would come a certain time of the year and people would know, okay, they got the foreigners here because they picking the apples and they picking the fruit and they picking the vegetables, so on and so forth. They used to be out in Wayne County and a couple of other counties. These people do this every year. This is nothing new. So our people being that we were in the land of having all the damn cotton, it was like, shoot, just like when marijuana was free then. You pick up your bud. Hey, somebody might not want to go grab them some. So if you got something bagged up, I already got something bagged up. Here, you should be $10. That's how they operate, right? Same thing with the cotton. Damn, I need a few dollars. What I'm gonna do? Okay, I'm finna go to this cotton farm real quick, work me a couple of hours, get my little stipend. Boom, I'm good. This is all they did, guys. let's read this. I want to get you guys a little bit into this information, and yeah, let's go.
Of the share tenant. Cotton production trends. The system. Concentration on cotton increased from the supervision of these advances determines the living standard of the share tenant. Cotton production trends. The plantation system is bound up with the cash crop.
The plantation system is bound up with the cash crop system, making it something for industrial use, making it laborable.
Concentration on cotton increased from the Civil War until the boll weevil invasion soon after 1910. Since 1910, there has been a marked shift of the cotton acreage to the states of Texas and Oklahoma, the combined acreage in these states having increased 100% from 1910 to 1930. In 1930, half the cotton acreage of the United States was concentrated in those two states. Cotton acreage had increased 40% in Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana, while the eastern plantation states, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, had 5% less acreage in cotton in 1930 than in 1910. This decrease was largely due to the disorganization caused by the boll weevil as it passed across the South. In some areas of the Southeast, financial distress became serious 25 years ago, and the trend for the cotton producer has been downward for a long time, interrupted by only short periods of high prices. The depression since 1930, therefore, merely added to the effects of previous disasters. Weevil damage caused drastic acreage reduction for a few years, and as each state reduced its acreage, Texas and Oklahoma added to theirs. When weevil disorganization had passed and the eastern cotton belt began to attain its former production, states west of the Mississippi continued to expand their acreage. As a result, the supply of cotton far exceeded the demand. Overproduction reached a peak when the 1931 crop of 16 million bales was added to a carryover of 10 million bales, at the same time that domestic and foreign demand was shrinking. As a result, the price fell to 6 cents a pound in 1932, causing heavy losses to all producers. Only the semi-self-sustaining farmer, or the planter with resources or good credit, could continue to operate. Land use and the one-crop system. Under the present system of cash crop farming, plantation land in the South is used more intensively than land in almost any other section of the country. The average plantation family in this study was allotted 25 crop acres. Croppers had an average of 20 crop acres. Share tenants and renters had about 25 crop acres, and wage hands, about 45 crop acres per family. Although spoken of as a one-crop system, the cropping arrangement of the Cotton South is really a two-crop system, cotton for cash, and corn for food and feed. Most plantations have as much acreage in corn as in cotton. 4% of the total expenditure of the plantations studied, however, was for feed, which could easily have been grown on the plantations. Up to the inauguration of the cotton reduction program, the plantations of the South tended to be less and less self-supporting, in contrast with the practices of slave plantations, which produced a large proportion of their subsistence needs. Depleted fertility of vast tracts of soil and widespread erosion have resulted from this exploiting of land resources in the interest of cotton cropping for cash returns. Consequently, substantial expenditures for fertilizer are necessary in the cultivation of cotton in the Southeast, except in the Delta areas. Under the crop reduction program of the AAA, cotton acreage was reduced, and between 1933 and 1935 probably more crop diversification was undertaken than during any other period of the South's history.
Isn't it ironic that this was the exact same time of the Banking Act, right? In 1933, with this great cash flow, right? This wonderful cash flow. And they try to tell you it was slavery, but it was the cash flow of this cotton. Hey, when you do that, hold on.
Most plantations have as much acreage in corn as in. Up to the inauguration of the cotton reduction program, the plantations of the South tended to be less and less self-supporting, in contrast with the practices of slave plantations, which produced a large proportion of their subsistence needs. Depleted fertility of vast tracts of soil and widespread erosion have resulted from this exploiting of land resources in the interest of cotton cropping for cash returns. Consequently, substantial expenditures for fertilizer are necessary in the cultivation of cotton in the southeast, except in the delta areas. Under the crop reduction program of the AAA, cotton acreage was reduced, and between 1933 and 1935 probably more crop diversification was undertaken than during any other period of the South's history. The present cropping system, however, makes such a soil conservation practice difficult to introduce, with the result that the South is one of the major erosion areas of the nation. 10% of the land in the United States classified for retirement from arable farming by the National Resources Board in 1934 was cotton land. In a prolonged cotton crisis, even the most efficient planters are no longer able to operate unless they have ample resources or credit. Although exclusive cotton culture results in heavy losses in bad years, the owners of large tracts still concentrate on this crop because no other use of large-scale tracts is so profitable to the landlord in good years. Only the owners and tenants operating small acreages have any advantage in planting their land to foodstuffs. They can use the produce themselves, but the large planters cannot profitably dispose of all the food that their land is capable of producing. Credit system interest is a substantial item in the budget of plantation expenditures of landlords and tenants and is a major obstacle in the way of financial progress for those in either class. Nearly half of the landlords interviewed for this study had long-term debts, mostly in the form of mortgages, averaging more than 40% off the appraised value of their land, buildings, animals, and machinery. These long-term debts were incurred to meet deficits or purchases of machinery, etc. Most of the landlords had availed themselves of government facilities for mortgage loans. From 1910 to 1928, the amount of mortgage debt almost quadrupled in the 7 southeastern cotton states, and the increases in mortgage debt from 1920 to 1928 were proportionately greater in the South than in any other section of the country. A large number of mortgages have been foreclosed in the past 15 years, and the process was accelerated in the early years of the Depression. Slightly more than half, 52%, of the landlords interviewed had short-term debts incurred to meet production expenses for the 1934 crop. The average amount borrowed per plantation was $2,000.
Read that again.
A large number of mortgages have been foreclosed in the past 15 years, and the process was accelerated in the early years of the Depression.
Who brought the
Slightly more than
depression?
half,
Who brought the
52%.
Great Depression here? Who brought the Great Depression here? Mortgages. Mortgages lost to who? The people of the land. Now they were able to resend it out, go through these banks and get the property, the plantations on these homesteads for the homesteaders for them to plant nations.
Of the landlords interviewed had short-term debts incurred to meet production expenses for the 1934 crop. The average amount borrowed per plantation was $2,300, which covered about half the requirements for financing annual production. Interest rates on loans to landlords were high, amounting to 10% on government loans, 15% on bank loans, and 16% on merchant accounts. Combined interest on loans and mortgage debts amounted to almost as much as the landlord's net labor income. The banks were the predominant sources of landlord short-term credit, only about 22%.
Here come the banks. Here they come. Remember 1933, guys, the Banking Act. Now they can take your property. They're taking all your gold. They're doing everything they need to do. They can put things indentured into the trust so that they can now recycle them and put into what? The foreign embassies, so they can put things and trade them out to build up the other so-called continents.
Short-term loans recorded in the study having been supplied by government agencies. All of the government loans went to landlords, since they held the only available security, the crop lien. Farmers in the 7 southeastern cotton states benefited from emergency crop production and feed loans, obtaining 51% of all loans granted in the country from 1931 through 1934. They also received 37% of the loans granted in 1933 and 1934 under the production credit system authorized by the Farm Credit Act.
Who? The what?
Both of these types of loans, however, benefited the plantation owner and cash tenant rather than the sharecropper. The long-term debts
Listen.
1933 and 1934 under the production credit system authorized by the
Credit
Farm
system.
Credit Act. Both of these types
Farm
of loans,
credit.
however, benefited the plantation owner and cash tenant rather than the sharecropper.
Man, don't let me get into a build about these mineral rights. I keep trying to. I got a document from a couple years ago. I want to show you guys. Got the names, addresses, how much they was paid. Y'all remember when y'all parents used to get a check? Who remembers their parents getting a check? It was either green, yellow, or blue. It was green, yellow, or blue. Before I get back to this, let me get to this chat real quick to see if y'all with me. Who remembers your parent getting a check? They used to get a siphon check, just like people get Social Security, disability checks now. But every Indian family got a stipend check from the government. It was either blue, green, or yellow, right? And it went to what? A credit system for the trust fund. When did they start taking it from y'all? They were doing it when I was a little girl, but around what? Let's say the 70s and the 80s, that shit stopped. Then they put in the free government cheese and, you know, so on and so forth. Who remember that? Nobody remember that? I'm going to leave it alone for now. Let's go. I'm going to leave it alone for now because that's too much to get into because y'all going to really be lost. Let's go back.
The average amount borrowed per plantation was $2,300, which covered about half the requirements for financing annual production. Interest rates on loans to landlords were high, amounting to 10% on government loans, 15% on bank loans, and 16% on merchant accounts. Combined interest on loans and mortgage debts amounted to almost as much as the landlord's net labor income.
I know somebody with me.
The banks were the predominant sources of landlord short-term credit, only about 22% of the short-term loans recorded in the study having been supplied by government agencies. All of the government loans went to landlords, since they held the only available security, the crop lien. Farmers in the 7 southeastern cotton states benefited from emergency crop production and feed loans.
Security is what? Security is credit. They had the security, the credit. I keep telling y'all about the securities that they're holding in your name, your ancestors' name, in your lineage, in your heresy, under these trusts that they have set up under mineral rights, under the agriculture, under the Social Security Department, under the township and the registration of your birth certificate. The township actually has your trust as well. So, y'all hearing this? They telling y'all. Same thing I've been telling y'all. Keep trying to show you.
1% of all loans granted in the country from 1931 through 1934. They also received 37% of the loans granted in 1933 and 1934 under the production credit system authorized by the Farm Credit Act.
I want to keep stopping, y'all.
Both of these types of loans,
however, Social Security. Hold on, I got to comment to this. I don't want to keep stopping it, guys, but listen. Yes, the Social Security, that's right, Chief, Social Security. Now, keeping in mind, they can only get it now. How? What I keep telling y'all, they have all the Social Security trusts under a disability, right? You're under disability because you're what? You're Black, right? You're blind in your mind. You're Black, right? And on top of being Black, what else is going on? You're a minor. Oh my gosh, that means you're like a child. A minority is a minor. That's under the age of development in the mind. If you're a minor, that means you're not developed fundamentally in your mind. So now they have you listed as what? Feeble-minded. Don't I keep telling y'all this? They have you listed as feeble-minded because now all of those securities, they can stifle and then they can abuse them and use them with your Social Security card when you get them through these systems, and people can use them for the application. Now they can trade your information on the stock market because that registration number that's on your birth certificate goes right to your account. You didn't know that, did you? But I'm letting you know now. Also, the number that's on your Social Security, that goes to your other account. Oh, you have multiple accounts. You didn't know that, huh? You didn't know that you were a multi-millionaire. You were born that way, huh? Oh my gosh, this shit gets so real. Y'all don't even know how they keep fucking with y'all head. But listen, when you think about it, sis said yes, Social Security. So they now have a stipend for it. They changed it. And so our ancestors weren't getting it anymore. They put it into entire system so they could use it for the immigrants through what? The embassy. Oh man, wait till I get into this embassy. Y'all gonna flip. I wanted to do something on that last week. We did a little bit on it, but I didn't get into the whole full details, but we about to get into it soon. But yeah, let's continue on. I don't want to keep running my mouth. I want y'all to really get this.
Plantation owner and cash tenant rather than the sharecropper.
Plantation
The long-term
owner
debts of
and
tenants are usually
hold on,
contracted
hold
with
on. I
or
want
through
y'all
the
to hear that part
landlord.
again because I was talking.
1933 and 1934 under the Production Credit System authorized by the Farm Credit Act. Both of these types of loans, however, benefited the plantation owner and cash tenant rather than the sharecropper. The long-term debts of tenants are usually contracted with or through the landlord and are either secured by chattel mortgage on livestock or equipment, or simply carried forward on the landlord's books and added to current borrowing as a lien against future
Commodities was after
the tenant's short-term debts for the current season are usually incurred with the landlord, who provides the tenant's share of expenses and his subsistence advances during the crop season, charging them against future production. Sometimes the merchant makes the subsistence advances. The average time for which advances were made, as shown by this survey, was 7 months, and the average advance was $12.80 per family per month. In a study of 112 croppers in North Carolina in 1928, subsistence advances were found to be mostly in the form of cash, and to constitute more than 63% of the croppers' cash farm income. Interest paid on those advances amounted to more than 10% of the croppers' cash income. Tenant rates of interest are even higher than landlord rates. The merchant and landlord charge high interest rates to compensate for losses due to bad debts. However, the spread between landlord rates and tenant rates is greater than the usual percentage of loss on bad debts. The high rates of interest involved in the system of credit to sharecroppers is one of the major factors preventing their rise on the agricultural ladder. Basing the credit system on crop liens discourages tenants from diversifying their crops, and often forces landlords to market crops at disadvantageous times. Net incomes in the Cotton Belt are low. In 1934, the average net income per plantation was $6,024. With AAA benefits included, 1934 incomes compared favorably with those for 1929. This survey indicates that in addition to the size of the plantation income is related to crop acres per plantation, total cotton acres per plantation, the proportion of cropland in cotton, the productivity of the land, and managerial efficiency. On the average, the larger the plantation, the higher the gross and the net income. The operator's gross cash income on the 645 plantations studied averaged $5,095. The lowest average gross cash income was received by operators in the Muscle Shoals area, and the highest in the Arkansas River area. On 38% of the plantations, it was found that the gross cash income of the operator was less than $2,000. It was between $2,000 and $5,000 on 32% of the plantations, and more than $5,000 on the remaining 30%. The average net income of the operators was $2,572, about 10% of which was in the form of home-consumed products. The net income ranged from an average of $1,340 in the Muscle Shoals area to $7,149 in the Arkansas River area.
Okay, I had to restart it. I think this is the page. I hate when they do that. The book expired.
Tenant rates of interest are even higher than landlord rates. The merchant and landlord charge high interest rates to compensate for losses due to bad debts. However, the spread between landlord rates and tenant rates is greater than the usual percentage of loss on bad debts. The high rates of interest involved in the system of credit to sharecroppers is one of the major factors preventing their rise on the agricultural ladder. Basing the credit system on crop liens discourages tenants from diversifying their crops, and often forces landlords to market crops at disadvantageous times. Net incomes in the Cotton Belt are low. In 1934, the average net income per plantation was $6,024. With AAA benefits included, 1934 incomes compared favorably with those for 1929. This survey indicates that in addition to the size of the plantation income is related to crop acres per plantation, total cotton acres per plantation, the proportion of cropland in cotton, the productivity of the land, and managerial efficiency. On the average, the larger the plantation, the higher the gross and the net income. The operator's gross cash income on the 645 plantations studied averaged $5,095. The lowest average gross cash income was received by operators in the Muscle Shoals area, and the highest in the Arkansas River area. On 38% of the plantations, it was found that the gross cash income of the operator was less than $2,000. It was between $2,000 and $5,000 on 32% of the plantations, and more than $5,000 on the remaining 30%. The average net income of the operators was $2,572, about 10% of which was in the form of home-consumed products. The net income ranged from an average of $1,340 in the Muscle Shoals area to $7,000.
Tell me if y'all want me to switch to this book or not. Press 1. If y'all want to go to this book, press 1. Press 1.
In 1934 was sufficient to pay him 6% on his invested capital and about $850 for his labor income. In poor years, the landlord is likely to lose heavily on his part of the expenses and also on the tenant income paid in advance for subsistence. The proportion of net plantation income received by share tenants is very small. In 1934, the average net income per family of the wage hands, croppers, share tenants, and renters on plantations in the 11 areas surveyed was only $309, or $73 per capita.
Let's go.
The average net income per family of wage laborers was $180 for the year, varying from $213 in the Arkansas River area to $70 in the interior plain area.
Let's go then. That's what y'all want. That's what you should get. Let's go, y'all. I was ready to do a couple of things today. There's 2 other books. We can definitely come back to some of this as well, but this is still relating. So I'm not sure. Oh, I thought I stopped sharing it. I did stop. Okay, here we go. I'm not sure when we'll get back to the other 2 in relation to that, but we're definitely going to cover it hopefully this week. We're going to get started right here. Keep it moving.
White Servitude in the Colony of Virginia. Chapter I. Servitude under the London Company. The failure of individual enterprise to establish a permanent colony in America, and the example of successful commercial corporations, led to an adoption in England of the corporate principle in regard to colonization as well as to trade. The Virginia Company of London, created by letters patent from King James L. April 10, 1606, was organized as a joint stock company on the general plan of such commercial corporations, and particularly on that of the East India Company. The 2 companies had the same governor. The distinction between them lay in the fact that the avowed object of the Virginia Company was to establish a colony of which trade was to be a result, while the India Company aimed at trade alone, and the colonization which resulted was merely incidental. Though the Virginia Company was composed of 2 separate divisions, the London Company and the Plymouth Company, the former, which alone effected a permanent colonization, is of interest to us. The charter members of this company were largely merchants of London, and after its organization was perfected 2 classes of membership were distinguished. First, adventurers, who remained in English. 1 Stevens, p. 8, Bruce, I. 112, 136, 138, 100, Charter of 1000, land and subscribed money towards a capital stock, and, second, planters, who went in person as colonists, and were expected by their industry or trade to greatly enlarge the stock in its province. Shares of adventure were granted for each subscription of 12 los to the stock, and also for each adventure of the person, entitling the holder to participate proportionately to his shares in all divisions of profits, both those resulting from the industry of the colonists and those resulting from trade, and besides this to receive a land grant of some nature for each share. A community of property and of trade was to be established in the colony for 5 years after the first landing of the colonists, and at the end of that time doubtless a division of profits and of land was promised. 1 Nova Britannia, Force, I. 24, 28, Brown, Genesis of the T.J. S. I. 228, 229, Charter of 1609, Virginia Mag of Hist and Biog, October, 1894, volume.
Damn, y'all see this right here? It's a declaration. He ain't gonna read it right, so I definitely gotta say it. It's a declaration of ancient planters. I gotta look that up, y'all. I ain't never even noticed this right here. I probably a lot of times I'll past, when it's talking about other things, but this one right here, I'm looking like, okay, when it said Genesis, I was listening to it. Genesis of the US, right? I got that book. That's crazy. That's what made me notice it. So Genesis of the US, I might get into that book this week. It goes into a lot of the patriarchal shit as well. So history of the biology, something, I don't know what that is. And then right here, it says instructions to yearly. It says declaration of ANCT, that means ancient, I'm pretty sure, planters. Declaration of ancient planters. We're going to check that out, y'all, as soon as your girl get the info on it. Let's go.
To 156, 7. Instructions to one Erdley, Diclavangt. Planters, Colonel Rec, Virginia, 81. We have nothing extant to show the exact terms on which the colonists of 1606 to 7 as a whole, and the supplies until 1609, came to Virginia. When we come to the latter year, we have in a pamphlet, Nova Britannia, and in a broadside of the company, both issued to attract new adventurers and planters, a perfect outline of the company's policy at that time. There is nothing, however, so far as I have been able to discover, that contradicts the view that the outline as we have it for 1609 was in its general character that of 1606, the chief difference being the length of the term, which was probably 5 years in 1606 instead of the 7 years of 1609. On the contrary, all the evidence we have goes to substantiate this theory. In $161, the instructions to Yardley ordered that 100 acres of land be granted to each share owned by every planter, whether sent by the company or transferred at his own charge before the coming away of Dale in 1616. This included some of the colonists of 1607. The patent of 1606 specially authorizes the council of the colony to pass lands, declaring all lands passed by letters patent shall be sufficient assurance from the said patentees, so divided amongst the undertakers for the plantations of the said several colonies, and shows that a division of land was contemplated. Brown, I. 63. This is established by the fact of ancient planters of 1607 receiving in later years grants of lands for their personal adventure, and also for subscriptions to stock. Captain Gabriel Archer's brother inherited one grant. This so-called communal system was provided for in His Majesty's instructions issued a short time after the granting of the patent to the company. They were to trade together all in one stock or debitably, but in 2 or 3 stocks at most, and bring not only all the fruits of their labors there, but also all such other goods and commodities which shall be brought out of England or any other place into several magazines or storehouses, and every person of the said several colonies was to be furnished with all necessaries out of those several magazines or storehouses. For and during the term of 5 years. An officer called the treasurer or Cape merchant was to administer this magazine in connection with the president and council, accounting for all goods taken into and withdrawn from this joint stock. 1. The position of an early planter was thus theoretically that of a member of the company, who was to receive in lieu of his service for a term of years his maintenance during that time, or his transportation and maintenance, at the company's charge. For the adventure of his person, as well as for every subscription of 12 ios, he received a bill of adventure which entitled him to the proportion that of land from him, and Anthony Gosnold, in 1621, received a share for personal adventure 16 years before at his own charge. Of Brown, 2, 814, Neal, Virginia Co., 257, Arbor Smith, 390, Berg, Volume 2, 332, 333, 334, under names Dodds, Simons, Martin. It is not to be supposed that mere adventure or gold-seeking would have constituted a sufficient motive to induce many persons to make such an experiment. A land grant of some kind was undoubtedly promised before 1609 in addition to the proportional share of profits. This was in accordance with the policy under which earlier attempts at discovery or colonization had been made. Gilbert's articles of agreement with the merchants adventurers in 1582, under his patent of 1578, show the same general principle of adventurers of the purse or person and of land grants, and Carlyle's project presents a scheme of adventurers and enterprisers who are to share equally in the lands, and see, discovered. Sainsbury, Ms. I. 32, 35, Hockley Odd, 3, 234, 235, Virginia History Mag, October 94, 186. 1 Brown, I. 71, 72. Instructions, November 20th, 1606. Would fall to a single share in a division of land and profits. As a member, he stood on an equal footing with all other members and stockholders. One practically, however, would fall to a single share in a division of land and profits. As a member, he stood on an equal footing with all other members and stockholders.
Y'all hear that shit? Okay, check this out real quick, y'all. I have to show y'all this. We're gonna come right back to this. Now, remember we just seen them talking about the Declaration of the Ancient Planners. So I got to find this info. This is how I do when I study. This is why I be finding so much stuff, y'all. I can't help it. My mind just be going and going and going. Something was like, if you don't get the info on this shit right now. So I had to stop. Now check this out. I found something on it, a book, right, that I had. Because I got a couple of things on Virginia, right? So I pull the book up. I'm looking. I'm like, let me see. I'm going to do a search in the book. So I did a search in a couple of books, didn't find anything, got to one particular book, I found something in the search, right? So why it would not, it took the pages out, y'all. I'm gonna show y'all in a minute, but since I got it up, I want y'all to see it because I want to get it on the bill real quick. This is, damn it. Okay, hold on. I'm about to mess up. This is Brief Declaration of the Plantations of Planters of Virginia during the first 12 years when Sir Thomas Smith was governor of the company and down to his present time by the ancient planters now remaining alive in Virginia. First off, let me say this page. That's what I'm gonna do. Let me say the page first off, because see, they playing with me. That's what I don't do. Y'all really tripping archive. Like, y'all gonna get sued on some bullshit because this type of stuff you legally you can't do. Okay, hold on. Ancient planters in Virginia. Okay, so I got this right quick. I got that image. Let me get the next page too. But let's read it. I want y'all to hear this, what they saying about these ancient planters, right? Who are the ancient planters? And why did they cut it out this book? And I'm gonna show y'all how it's cut out this book. This on page 69. Y'all can see it right here, page 69, right? Let me move this thing. I want y'all to see this for yourself. Page 69, right? Okay, watch. When I finish, though, I'm gonna make sure to read it first. Let's read this.
State Paper Office. Colonial. Volume J, number 21, I. A brief declaration of the plantation of Virginia during the first 12 years, which Sir Thomas Smith was governor of the co 77 I Penny, and down to this prescribed time. By the ancient planters now remaining alive in Virginia. Whereas in the beginning of Sir Thomas Smith's 12 years government, it was publified in print throughout the kingdom of English and that a plantation fowl be fettled in Virginia for the glory of God in the propagation of the gospel of Christ, the conversion of the savages, to the honor of his majesty, by the enlarging of his territories and future enriching of his kingdom, for which repefs many noble and well-minded persons were induced to adventure great sums of money to the advancement of folk pious and noble a worka, who have from the very first flow been frustrate of their expectation, as we con. Save, by the myth government of Sir Thomas Smith, aiming at nothing more than a particular gain, to be raped out of the labors of Fuka as both voluntarily adventured themselves and were otherwise fent over at the common charge. This will clearly appear in the examination of the Furfeet expedition and Feverall Fupplies in the time of his government. The Furfeet plantation in Virginia consisted of 100 perfans. Fo Flenderly provided for that before they had remained half a year in this new Koyuani they fell into extreme want, not having anything left to fustine them fave a little ill-conditioned barley, which ground to meal and pottage made thereof. 1 family ladleful was allowed each perfan for a meal, without bread, or aught else what fever, Fo that had not God, by his great providence, moved the Indians, then our utter enemies, to bring just relief. We had all utterly by famine perished. How unable Fo a company of people, fo poorly fent over, were to make way for Fuka as flyo alda followi, may easily be judged. The Furfeet Fupply being 2 hips, the John and Francis and Phoenix, with 120 perfans, were every way provided for then the former, arrived here about 8 or 9 months.
Hold on, they got this mixed with some English shit. Let me tell y'all what it says. It says, how able so small a company of people for poorly sent over were to make way for such a shawled follow may easily be judged. The first supply being 2 shippers, and John and Francis of Phoenix, with 120 persons, worst ever way provided for them. The former arrived here about 8 and 9 months after found the colony consisting of no more than 40 persons. Of those, 10 only able men, and rest a part of death, all utterly destitute of. It says I hate when they interchange these words. They could be 3 different damn letters. How else? I guess house. Not one as yet built, so that they lodged in cabins and holes within the ground. Actually, they had none, save some small relief from the Indians, as some yet living were feelings witnesses neither. Okay, let it keep going.
After and found the colony consisting of no more than 40 perfans.
Okay, the Indians, as some yet living were feelings and witnesses neither were.
Of the 10 only able men, the reft at point of
Y'all
death,
know they couldn't spell,
all utterly destitute of house, not one as yet built. Fo that they lodged in cabins and holes within the grounda, Vic, tools they had none, fave foam relief
ground
from
rituals.
The Indians, as foam yet living were, feeling a witness, neither were we for our future and better maintenance permitted to manure or till any grounda, a thing in a new plantation principally to be regarded.
A new plantation.
By the direction of Sir Thomas Smith, and his officers here, wholly employed in cutting it down of moths, cedar, black a walnut, clabbered, and and in digging a gold ore, as foam thought, which, being fent for England proved dirt.
Being sent
the
for
forks
English.
to make return of prevent profit hindered others of more necessary consequence of plantation. After this furflow fupply there were foam few poorhouse built, and entrance made to be done gain. Foam meanly likewise were the fern of fleet forth for 6 twilies, that in left then 2 months after their arrival, one compelled us to employ our time abroad in trading with the Indians for corn, whereby though for a time we partly relieved our necessities, yet
trading with the Indians.
In May following we were forced about the allowance of by this time arrived, we might bring his salies a fly over the provisions, at a 50 of Phoeben planted, and in 3 days abroad for their better relief. The Furfeet under command of Captain Francis wept to feet at the head of the river, a fecund under command of Captain John Smith, then prefident, at Jamestown, and the other, with Capt. John Martin, in the river at Nanfamon, which Divisions gave a Caffians to the Indians treacherously to cut off divers of our men and boats, and forced the reft at the end of weeks, having spent the small provisions they had with them, to retire to Jamestown, and that in the depth of winter, when by refon of Tlycolda, it was not possible for us to endure to wait in the water, as formerly, to gather oysters to fetus our hungry flomicals, but conf trained to dig in the ground of for unwhole foam roots whereof we were not able to get fo many as would suffice us, in repital of the froth at that fifon and our poverty and weakness, fo that famine compelled us wholly to devour the hogs, dogs and horfs that were then in the colony, together with rates, mice, snakes, or what vermin or carrion fever we could light on, as alphotode fetols, Jews' ears, or what else we found a growing upon the ground of that.
Okay, slow
Would
down.
fill either
We're
mouth
gonna
or
read
belly.
the whole thing, but I wanted y'all to see that because that's crazy that it was talking about that. So I think, let me see, sis. This book has their name. Is this the same book, sis, that you got? With the records? Is this what you're talking about, sis? If so, just so I know. If not, if you have if you got a record on something, please send it. But this book has the record in it as well. I had this downloaded as a PDF. A lot of the PDFs I noticed, like some of the books, I'll go back. I got books from a long time. I may not have looked at it because of whatever. I go back and look at something or for something, and it said it don't have the what is that? Borrow unavailable, which I think is illegal. I'm a touch bases with archive soon on that bullshit. But yeah, let's go. But y'all see, these are the names. Let me go back so y'all can see. I want y'all to. Oh wait, I want y'all to see. Let me take the sound off. How I put it in here because it wasn't pulling up, right? And I said, no, it's in here. I put ancient builders in here, and this is how I was able to get it. But I'm gonna show y'all. Let me refresh the page. How it skips the page. It skips past all of that when you start going. Watch. 63, right? 64, 65, 66, 67. Look, where it go to 85. Look, it take all those pages out. 66, 67. Let's try it again. Goes right to 85. Y'all see this shit? They took all of the pages out about the ancient planners. They took like every page out. Look, from 66 to 85. From 66 to 85. They took 19 pages out, guys. Oh, 21? Yeah, 21 pages out. Y'all see this shit? And it's blank. Now, you guys remember we were reading the other book last week, right? Let's get off of here real quick. Remember we were reading the book last week, and then I brought it up over the weekend. And it was reading. We looking at the book, right? And it's like, dang, it's saying something different than what's in the book. They done changed the whole damn book, the wording in the book. But see, they can't change the audio recording and move the stuff out. They don't have time, and they're not able to do that. You feel me? So this is how they remove our information, just like they remove some of the books from my library. I got over 6,000 books in my library. Like, I might not know everything, like I can't remember everything like that, but I know if I have certain information, I should be able to, boom, go to my library, look down it, and then boom, I'm gonna see the book, and then my mind will say, oh, there it goes, it's in there. Or I'll say it's associated with this, and then I'll look through those couple of books, and boom, there it is. This is how it be. So now when I go to stuff, like it's like unavailable. Talking about borrow unavailable. How the hell is a borrow for a digital book unavailable? You cheap ass, thieving ass people. I'm so tired of these damn people. Let's get back to the other book on the white servitude. Hear about them in the colony of Virginia while they was working for our people. I love it. Okay, here we go. Now we are going to get back to this. Put the title in for anyone that comes in. This is what we are about to listen to right now. And let's go. This is where we were left off at, rather. Here we go. We're going to get to the good part in a second, talking about the treasury, all of that shit.
A land grant of some kind was undoubted. Gilbert's articles of agreement with a land grant of some kind was undoubtedly promised before 1609 in addition to the proportional share of profits. This was in accordance with the policy under which earlier attempts at discovery or colonization had been made. Gilbert's articles of agreement with the merchants adventurers in 1582, under his patent of 1578, show the same general principle of adventurers of the purse or person and of land grants, and Carlyle's project presents a scheme of adventurers and enterprisers who are to share equally in the lands, and c. discovered. Sainsbury Ms. I. 32, 35, Hockley Odd. 3, 234, 235, Virginia History Mag. October 94,
Yeah.
186. 1 Brown, I, 71, 72. Instructions, November 20th, 1606.
You know what's crazy, sis? I have some some actual documents that are on microfilm, and do you know they took the, I don't know what the hell they did, but literally, man, reach out to me about that if you could do that. Maybe we can find the originals or something. I would love that. Let's go. Come on.
Would fall to a single share in a division of land and profits. As a member, he stood on an equal footing with all other members and stockholders. One practically, however, as we shall see, he was, at least during the first 12 years of the company's government, little better than a servant manipulated in the interest of the company, held in servitude beyond a stipulated term, and defrauded of his just share in the proceeds of the undertaking. The administration of Sir Thomas Smith, the first treasurer of the company, even when we allow for the exaggerated statements of the planters, was undoubtedly hurtful to the welfare of the infant colony.
Sis, that happens. Just so people know, you got to be very careful with these records. See, they'll go and they'll just attach themselves to your shit because remember they stole your names. And then they'll start building the ancestry record. So now it's showing them as the heirs. You see, they keep the record from a long time ago. So that it's easy for them to impede on it. So now they can say they got rights to your land. This is why these white tea people are going to these reservations because they got these fake ass names and shit. Yeah. A sister just contacted me yesterday, 2 days ago, now your business, same exact thing. She told me that she went through a record and she found these people on there. And I told her, get her records, prove it, and kick their ass off. That's the same thing you need to do. Kick them off. Because they do this all the time. This is why I don't really talk about the information I have found on my family too much. You know, I'll talk a little junk or whatever because I'm excited about whatever. But, you know, at the same time, I can't do it. I'm not giving people everything that I have for them to be playing around because they, you know, they be trying to do that. But I have my stuff in stone. I got everything under my trust. So let them play if they want to. Whatever they're trying to get, their ass gonna get X'd out. Trust that. Playing with my name, anything that have to do with me, they shit is over. But yeah, let's go. Here we go again. This thing's so ridiculous. So ridiculous. Why does it keep stopping? Probably because it's got get paid.
His policy was one of immediate gain. The administration of Sir Thomas Smith, the first treasurer of the company, even when we allow for the exaggerated statements of the planters, was undoubtedly hurtful to the welfare of the infant colony. His policy was one of immediate gain. The success of the East India Company, whose first governor he also was, as a trading corporation, probably led to his desire to conduct the Virginia Company on much the same principles. The welfare of the colonists was neglected, and the project of true colonization seems to have been lost sight of in the desire to exploit teak riches of an unknown country and to discover the long-sought-for passage to the South Seas. Though some 80,000 had been spent in 12 years, the company, when turned over to Sir Edwin Sandys in 1619, was in debt 8,000 or 9,000, and there had survived but a bare fourth of near 2,000 colonists that had been sent over. 2 restrictions had been put upon the planting of corn, and the colonists were wholly dependent on the poor supplies from England or the doubtful generosity of the Indians. This policy had reduced the J. Virginia Co-Rec. 2, 94, 111.
Let's rewind that part. Hold on.
Append. 2 restrictions had been put upon the planting of corn, and the colonists were wholly dependent on the poor supplies from England or the doubtful generosity of the Indians. This policy had reduced the J. Virginia Co-Rec. 2, 94, 111. Append. 26 later, when separate courts were established, subsequent to the charters of 1609 and 1612, for governing the company, whenever members had a voice in these courts, the Virginia colonist enjoyed a like privilege, if he happened to be in England. 2 Virginia Co-Rec. I. 4, 64, 181. Virginia History Mac. October, 1893, 157. Of more than 800 colonists sent during the first 3 years, only about 60 survived, of a still larger number sent before 1619, but 400 were alive when Yardley came, and half of these were unfit for work. Arbor Smith, Introd, 6, Colonel Rec. Colony in 1609 to but 50 persons, and discontent with the aristocratical form of the company's government and its bad administration led to a petition for a new charter. This charter constituted the London Company of Virginia a separate corporation from the Plymouth, defined the boundaries of its territory, and vested it with powers that gave it a more independent and republican character. To obtain fresh settlers, the company now issued broadsides and pamphlets, with specious promises, which, however honest its purpose, were certainly never fulfilled. There is evidence, however, in these advertisements to indicate that the company consciously imposed on prospective settlers. One broadside solicits workmen of whatever craft they may be, men as well as women, who have any occupation, who wish to go in this voyage for colonizing the country with people they will receive for this voyage 500 reals 2 for each one, houses to live in, vegetable gardens and orchards, and also food and clothing at the expense of the company, and besides this they will have a share of all the products and profits that may result from their labor, each in proportion, and they will also secure a share in the division of the land for females and their heirs forevermore. 3. A letter to the Lord Mayor, Aldermen, and Companies of London offers similar terms and a definite grant of 100 acres for every man's person that hath a trade or a body able to endure day's labor, as much for his child that are of years to do service to the colony, with further particular reward according to their particular merits and industry. The full policy of the company appears in a pamphlet issued by it about the same time. The object was to raise both men and money. Shares were set at £12 10 shillings, and every ordinary man, woman, and child above 10 years that went to the colony to remain 1/10 a pence. 8. Nova Britannia, Force, I, 23. 2. The equivalent of 1210s, or the expense of transportation.
I got you, bro.
I,
Reach out when you're ready.
252.
I swear I'm trying to get all us right.
Was allowed for his person a single
and
share as if
that.
he had subscribed the required sum of money. Every extraordinaire man, as divines, governors, ministers of state and justice, knights, gentlemen, physicians, or such as were of worth for special services, were rated and registered by the council according to the value of their persons. The company on its part agreed to bear all the charges of settling and maintaining the plantation and furnishing supplies in a joint stock for 7 years. There was to be no private trading, and as we supply,
no private trading,
from hence to the planters at our own charge all necessaries for food and apparel, for fortifying and building of houses in a joint stock, so they are also to return from thence the increase and fruits of their labors for the use and advancement of the same joint stock till the end of 7 years.
Remember. Y'all don't remember. None of y'all. Some people say, yeah, they remember. A few people didn't, or said they never heard of that. Y'all don't remember your parents having a partnership or being a part of a co-op, right? Y'all, you remember your mom saying anything about, oh, my co-op, or, my stipend, my bonus, any of that. If you remember any of that, you know for sure that your family has a trust and you can still go back and get that the right way once you get everything set up correctly. So the stipends were like part of the co-ops. This is what he's talking about now. Listen very closely. This is what they were doing. You be working, like the farm, the same thing I keep telling y'all that I'm trying to build in my community. We'll have like the bartering system between each other. You're a part of this system. So now you're feeding into it. So you have a percentage into it. This builds your credit in it. Blah, blah, blah. Let's go. Y'all don't hear me. I'll play that part again.
There was to be no private trading, and as we supply, they say, from hence to the planters at our own charge all necessaries for food and apparel, for fortifying and building of houses in a joint stock, so they are also to return from thence the increase and fruits of their labors for the use and
I know y'all hear me. Somebody hear me.
The same joint stock till the end of 7 years, at which time we purpose, God willing, to make a division by commissioners appointed of all the lands granted unto us by his majestic to every one of the colonists according to each man's several adventure agreeing with our register book. Which we doubt not will be for every share of 12 pounds, 10 shillings, 500
Oil,
acres at
all
least.
the minerals, sis.
A large
I'ma find
increase
this
of the
document I
stock is
got on that.
anticipated from the success of the
The
colony,
names and
which
everything.
stock is also, as the land, to be divided equally at the 7 years' end or sooner, or so often as the company shall think fit for the
Yes,
greatness
truth
of
be
it to make
told.
a dividend. It was hoped that this would free them from further disbursements and would be an encouragement to the planters, as their share in the profits would thus be larger from a smaller number of shares owned by adventurers coming into the dividend. In order to secure
The
promptness in
dividends,
the
yeah,
payment
the
of
dividend
subscriptions,
check. Some of them were
every
called
man was to
dividend
be
checks.
registered
A
according to the
stipend
time
check.
his money or
I'm sorry, I'm
person
talking,
began
guys.
to
I'm gonna
adventure.
rewrite that part. A dividend check or a stipend check. Y'all, come on, couple of y'all, you remember? Come on, y'all, wake up. Y'all gonna remember in a minute. Keep paying attention. Let's go back.
The same joint stock till the end of 7 years, at which time we purpose, God willing, to make a division by commissioners appointed of all the lands granted unto us by his majestic to every one of the colonists according to each man's several adventure agreeing with our register book. Which we doubt not will be for every share of 12 pounds, 10 shillings, 500 acres at least. A large increase of the stock is anticipated from the success of the colony, which stock is also, as the land, to be divided equally at the 7 years' end or sooner, or so often as the company shall think fit for the greatness of it to make a dividend. It was hoped that this would free them from further disbursements and would be an encouragement to the planters, as their share in the profits would thus be larger from a smaller number of shares owned by adventurers coming into the dividend. In order to secure promptness in the payment of subscriptions, every man was to be registered according to the time his money or person began to adventure. The division of lands was to be just, and to ensure this it was to lie in scattered lots both good and bad, while the commissioners were to be chosen equally by adventurers and planters. Regardless of these professions, when the 7 years had passed, the company proposed to allow only 50 acres of land to a share in a division of land about to be made, and alleged in excuse that they were not in possession of more, and that it was not as yet freed from the encumber of woods and trees nor thoroughly surveyed, yet they hoped future opportunity will afford to divide the rest, which we cloud not will bring at least 200 acres to every single share. The division was in fact to be made not in performance of their obligations, but as a measure to raise further money for the expenses of the company. No adventurer was to be permitted to share in the division unless he made a further subscription of 12 los, or more if he chose, to the company's treasury. If he failed to do this, he was to wait for some future division for his share, which would lie in some remote place and not along James River and about the new towns erected, as the lands of the present division did. The company even went to the extent of admitting new adventurers, on a payment of the subscription, to equal shares in the division, in utter disregard of the rights of the old adventurers and of the planters in Virginia. Captain Argall was sent with commissioners and surveyors in 1616 to effect this division, and was granted in his own right a large plantation in the colony. It does not appear that the Virginia planters, except large shareholders like Captain John Martin and Lord Delaware, and possibly the men who had obtained their freedom in 1617 for building Charles City, ever participated in the division at all. No general private ownership of land in Severalty seems to have existed in Virginia until,
because they may have been trying to get information so they can get into your trust to get rights. You might have rights in your name. That's maybe why they call it, right? Because right now the government has what? Fallen. The shit is a fake ass fraud right now. They got all these actors out here playing this game because they're trying to keep up this scheme and shit. When they came in and did that thing, remember when Trump was so-called in office and they so-called came in and came into the White House? Was Trump in? Who was in at the time? Whatever happened. When the people came in and busted in the White House, the White House was shut down. That was their excuse. They did all that big fraud. Oh, they came and invaded the White House. Oh, they shot this white woman, All of that was a fraud to cause a distraction from the scene of y'all saying, damn, they shut the White House down. Why would they shut the White House down? Oh, because everybody in that bitch under tribunals, they have either been executed, they either in jail right now, or they on a ankle bracelet. So many of these stars is walking around with ankle bracelets. They got all these things going on. Oh, this Jamie Foxx thing, and this Oprah Winfrey thing, and this such and such person thing. Each one of these persons, their robot or their clone that has been playing their part while they've been under tribunals, locked their ass is have been locked up. Now these people are coming out and they are exposing them, because now it makes it look like, oh, something's wrong with them. Oh, they was a clone. They having all this shit for you to focus on, for you to not understand or remember the whole truth about these people is gone. They shit is over. The talking about the government is falling. That shit is failed and done. That's why I'm telling y'all to get y'all shit. And that's real talk. That whole system is a wrap. They trying to keep up a facade and do all they can. Why y'all think all this BRICS money, this BRICS money thing and all this is going on? Because it's gone. They is done for. We in a position right now, y'all. Y'all don't. Oh man, this type of stuff give me a headache. Let's keep reading. I ain't gonna keep talking. I'm gonna keep on. Let me play the damn thing, because yeah.
The arrival of Yardley as governor in 1619. The body of the colonists were forcibly kept out of their rights, and if they had
They trying to steal your shit. Get your information, sis.
Force.
Fact.
I 24, 25. New Brit. Brown, L, 273, 274.
Y'all with me?
The Charter of 1609 empowered the appointment of such a commission. 2 Brown, IL.
Just like now.
7.
Right? How they got all these people coming in? This is what they did back then, y'all. The same thing. These people, they coming in now, frontiersmen, all this, they getting plots of land, they getting money, they building housing for them, they doing everything for these people. That's why I started off with that video, to show y'all everybody and anybody can get what they need to get besides you, because you ain't checking their ass. This is the time though, because we are already in control. We already won. It's like no more race, y'all. Like for real, y'all just got to do what y'all need to do. You got to operate in your correct facilities, which is your mind. They all done. You know a piece. Come on. Done. Good old sorcery. They've been doing sorcery for so long that people just don't know how to see between it. People don't even know how to understand what's really going on right now. This is why they're trying to they keep warning us about this so-called EMP, because the whole system's gonna shut down. That's that money, man, all this, man, y'all. It's so much stuff going on. It's so much stuff. I don't like to really get into too much stuff, when I'm on certain subjects, but I try to talk to y'all and tell you guys about this stuff all the time. All this whole fraud, it's all theatrics. It's literally a stage play, and we're the audience. It's a stage play, and we're the audience. They're the actors, actresses. They're all on a theatrical production. Each person is trying to do a better play. Do y'all remember the build I did with Sophia Stewart, the first one that we did? That first video, she was talking. No, I'm lying. It was the second one. The second one, she went to the stuff about the entertainment, and she was telling you guys how the best actor with the Oscars, it's about who's the best actor. Who everybody has to play a role. Who can act the best? Who can do this? Who can do that? It don't be about the acting in that. It's who can do what. Somebody to get taken advantage of, a sexual experience with somebody, and boom, now you can get the Oscar, all that shit. It's all a facade. Yeah, we had pure war. Right. You're right, sis. Definitely. This shit ain't falling. It's a wrap. It's on. It's a rizat. Right. It's a rizat. You feel me? They got all the, yes. Remember I did the build a couple of months ago, y'all, on the actual, they got a police department, a foreign police department. They got actual foreigners arresting people, natural people to this land. How dare they? Who the hell is these damn people? They got a whole damn African village in a kingdom that's a sovereign kingdom and nation set up in South Carolina. Who the hell are these people? And they don't give you what belongs to you, but they're giving it to everybody else. We're going to get into the embassies because I want to show y'all how they use the embassies. I told y'all how they created the UN. When they created the UN and they did the IMF office, they all went to foreign relations. So now they have all these different plantations, because remember, they came here, they got all the people here, had them cultivating, agriculture, so on, pushing everything out, taking our wood out, taking our dirt out, taking our soil out, taking our seeds out, to every damn well. So now they're building up these places, right? Now they're sending the people here so they can kind of get rid of us, try to get rid of us, crowd us out. I literally talked to a lady yesterday that told me in Los Angeles they done pushed all the Negroes to the mountains. She literally told me out her mouth, most of the Negroes is like in the mountain. She said all the streets is covered with homeless people and tents, and they got all. She said mostly all the Mexicans are in the area of Los Angeles, like literally. They doing the same thing they did before. Then we just read that exact same thing in the book. When she told me, I said, girl, do you know you're telling me the same shit I just read in the book 2 days ago? We read it many times, but 2 days ago, it explained it. Them pushing them to the mountains. Remember, we read the part that told us everything about the white, what you call it? Damn it. Africans, the white Africans that have the pale skin, the green eyes, blonde hair, but they straight Africans. And you would think they're pale skin, but they're straight African. Remember the book was telling y'all about that? Remember it told y'all how they used these people to come against us, these pioneer men, frontiersmen. Y'all thinking like, oh, it was the Yankee, it was the this, whatever y'all wanted to call it. And then now, here come to find out there was a whole African the whole time, a Moor, a Quaker, a Jesuit, a pioneer, a frontier man, a homesteader, right? Homesteaders. Same thing as a reservation. Reservation, homesteader, same shit. Reservation, somebody put it in the chat for me, please. I'm tired of typing and talking. Reservation and homesteader, same thing. Black natives and white natives, there's a difference. There are two different ones. Both of them have taken over your stuff and are using what they can to cultivate this land, put you back in Africa to the dirt ass land where they cleared the whole damn ocean out. Now it's the bottom of the ocean, a desert ass land, and they want you to move over there. Ain't no water in sight. Like, come on. Can't make this shit up. Let me keep reading. Here we go, guys.
177, 778, 779.
You'll get plenty of them.
A brief declaration, 1616, VA. Mag, October,
Probably trying to check on your trust, baby.
158. Discourse of the Old Company, 1625. Right. Virginia Correc, IL, 196. Winder Ms. L, 16. In justice to the company, however, it should be said that its finances were, and of their titles before that time, certain corporate rights to land, however, belonged as early as 1617 to such core in a very bad state. They had suffered greatly from traducers of the plantation both in England and Virginia. Many of the original subscribers became so disheartened by this or the mismanagement of the company that they refused to pay up their subscriptions, and the company was compelled to go into debt, relying upon the private purses of its warmest supporters. The state of affairs became so bad by 1612 that the company took care to secure in its third charter the insertion of a special clause empowering them to collect subscriptions from its members. Brown, 2, 625. In November and December, 1610, on the report of Sir Thomas Gates of the imperative necessity of supplies, the company determined that all adventurers, both those already free of the company, i.e., who had paid up, and those who desired to be free, should subscribe at least the sum of 75, to be paid in 3 years, 25 each year, towards a new supply to be sent for the relief of the said colony in Virginia. Many members and other persons came to the relief of the company, but a number of knights and gentlemen who subscribed refused to pay, and the company was forced in 1613 to petition for the king's writ to sue in the High Court of Chancery for the amounts due. Brown, 2, 623 to 630, Brooke to Ellesmere. Lotteries were also used as a means of obtaining ready money, and in one to be drawn in 1614, every man who adventured 12 tens in the lottery could have either his prize or a bill of adventure to Virginia, with his part in all lands and profits arising from it. Adventurers who had not paid up their subscriptions were permitted, on the payment to the treasurer, in money, of double the sum for which they had subscribed, both to be free of the company and to share in the lottery for the whole amount paid in. If not satisfied with their drawings, they could have bills of adventure instead.
That part.
The company even declares that if the colonists in Virginia were now but a little while supplied with more hands and materials, we should the sooner resolve upon a division of the country by lot, and so lessen the general charge by leaving each several tribe or family to husband and manure his own. Ibid. 2. 762, 763, 764. Whatever difficulties incident to a new plantation the company may have had to overcome, these were undoubtedly enhanced by the maladministration of Sir Thomas Smith and his officers. The accounts were left in such a disorderly state when the government was turned over to Sandys that Smith's integrity was open to grave doubts. Though his accounts were carefully examined and he was given an opportunity to clear up the discrepancy, it was never satisfactorily explained.
Let him know, sis.
VA. Port Ions as Bermuda's hundreds, and a few particular plantations had been established by the common action of a number of adventurers or planters banded together in societies, sometimes with exceptional grants of jurisdiction that made them practically independent manors. Though the grants themselves in some cases dated as early as 1616, the establishment of these independent proprietaries was comparatively slow, and they increased in number very little before I6 IQ. The year 1616 seems to have marked a change in the policy of the company toward land grants, and in general to the disadvantage of the colonist. When an actual division of land was made to shareholders in 1619, only those who had subscribed or had come to the colony before the departure of Dale in 1616 were considered to hold great shares, or shares of old adventure, which entitled them to a grant of 100 acres, while the holders of shares issued since that time could claim but 50 acres a share. 2. Though a few exceptional grants were possibly one Virginia Mag Hist and Biog, October, 1893, 158, 160, Discourse of the Old Company. Ibid. Oct. 94, 160, Instructions to Yardley. Ms. Rec of Virginia Co. 3, 140, Robinson Ms. 146, Winder Ms. I. 16, Companies Register, 1615 to 23, Colonel Rec
the companies, huh?
of Virginia, 20 ETSEQ, Virginia Co-Rec, I. 62, 65. The first of the societies known as hundreds of any importance was Smith's Hundred, so called from Sir Thomas Smith, one of the subscribers to its fund, and it seems to have been established subsequently to April, 1618. In 1620 it became Southampton Hundred. Another was Marden's Hundred. Other plantations were established either by some ancient adventurer or planter, associating others with him, as Argall's, Marden's and Lord Delaware's plantations, or by new adventurers joining themselves under some one person, an example of which is seen in Christopher Lawn's plantation. The failure of the company itself as a successful colonizing agent and its very weak financial condition was the sole occasion of this private enterprise. To no dividend, except of lands, was ever declared in favor of the colonists, nor is there any record of a division of profits amongst the adventurers generally. The division of land that was made fell far short of the promises of the company under which the shares were taken. The ancient planters, by the company's orders, in 1619 were to have the 100 acres as a first. Made to individuals by governors before Yardley, they had no assurance of their titles, and we can regard no earlier date than 1619 as that of the full and general establishment of the rights of private property in land in Virginia. This communal system continued without a break until the year 1613, when a variation was introduced in the conditions of service of a number of the colonists and in their relation to the land. A sort of qualified property right was given them by the introduction of a tenancy at will on small division, and a future increase of this was promised only to those who had gone at their own charge. Their rights to be favored above those who went after the greatest hardships were apparently recognized by the instructions, but they themselves in their first assembly seem to have felt sufficient doubt as to its possible construction to petition the company that they have the second, third, and more divisions as well as any other planter, and shares also for their male children and issue. The latter request was not granted, but they appear to have been put on equal footing with other planters in subsequent land grants, which depended on a peopling of the tract first granted. I can find no evidence of a second or third division ever having been made. Arbors Smith, 526, Virginia History Mag, Oct. 94, 156, 157, VA, Co. Rec. I. 14, 15, Stith. 139, Colonel Rec. Virginia, Assembly of 1619. 1. I can find no authority whatever, except an erroneous reading of Stith. p. 139, for Chalmers' assertion that private property in land was instituted by Dale in Virginia in the year 1615
Private
by a
property
grant of
in
50
land.
acres in fee to every free man in the colony. All the evidence we have proves conclusively that no such grant of 139, for Rec. I. 14, 15, Stith. 139, Colonel Rec. Virginia, Assembly of 1619. 1. I can find no authority whatever, except an erroneous reading of Stith. p.
No authority whatsoever.
139, for Chalmers' assertion that private property in land was instituted by Dale in Virginia in the year 1615 by a grant of 50 acres in fee to every free man in the colony. All the evidence we have proves conclusively that no such grant of lands was made, nor does Stith ascribe the change in the company's policy at this time to Dale. It was the result, however, of the prosperous condition of the colony, which was largely the work of Dale. Dale was in England June 12, 1616, probably before the time of the issue of the brief declaration relating to the dividend of 50 acres, and it is possible if this were so that he was consulted in the matter. There is no authority, however, for the statement that it was due to his influence. From the declaration itself it seems to have been dictated by other motives. Chalmers gives Stith as his authority on this point, and the mistake has crept into Virginia histories on the sole authority of Chalmers. He further errs in the date, while Stith gives it correctly. Stith, 139, Chalmers Pol Annals, 36, Campbell, 116, Cook, 110, Burke, I, 177, Doyle, Virginia, MD, and the Carolinas, 152. Tracts of land belonging to the company, either at a fixed rent or on certain conditions of service to the colony. 1. This change was brought about by the intolerable conditions of servitude and the right which the few remaining colonists of 1607 probably had to demand a release under. Our 5-3-year contracts now expired. The Bermuda planters petitioned Governor Gates for permission to plant corn for a subsistence, as the company had been derelict in furnishing supplies. This petition was denied unless they accepted a tenantship at will, paying a yearly. Our 5-3-year contracts now expired. The Bermuda planters petitioned Governor Gates for permission to plant corn for a subsistence.
5-year contract expired. 5-year contract expired.
This petition was denied unless they accepted a tenantship at will, paying a yearly rent of 3 barrels of corn and giving a month's service to the colony. 2. The condition of the rest of the colonists was less fortunate. They were either retained in their servitude or granted, as tenants, small farms on condition of giving 11 months of the year to the benefit of the common store, from which they received but 2 barrels of corn. By 1616 further modifications had taken place, chiefly in favor of the farmer class, who had become a source of profit to the company and now numbered nearly a third of the colonists. The time of their service was reduced to 31 days, rendered at their convenience, and they were allowed to rent laborers from the colony as their servants. They paid a small rent for their farms and were responsible for their own maintenance and that of their servants. These laborers were men transported at the company's charge, and could be disposed of by the governor for the best interests of the colony, as their maintenance would otherwise devolve upon the company. Governor Dale placed a number of these on a tract of land called the Common Garden, and applied the proceeds of their labor to the maintenance of their overseers and the public officers of the colony. The skilled laborers and artificers, such as carpenters and smiths, constituted another class and worked at their trades for the 131, 132, Chalmers, 34, Purehaws, 1766, Hammer, 2 Declavey and seed planters, Colonel Reck of Virginia, 75, Chalmers, 39, Stith, 132, Purehaws, 1766. Colony, while they had land and time allotted them to till ground for their maintenance. 1. The freedom thus given to officers, farmers, and skilled laborers was only conditional, depending on a responsibility for their own maintenance, while full control continued to be exercised over those who depended on the company for support. This system continued without any important change until 1619. Some distinction of classes existed in the colony from the earliest days. Society was influenced by its personnel, and doubtless also by the fact that many of the colonists, unable to pay their transportation, were either sent upon the common charge of the company or of adventurers in England. Many of the gentlemen among the first immigrants took with them valets and servants on stipulated wages. The company also, best carried its seamen and soldiers, had servants in its employ on wages. To this class, however, was small and exceptional, and the bulk of the colonists went as members of the company, either at their own charge or at the charge of the company or of some private person. The hardships of the early years left little opportunity for the growth of an aristocratic sentiment, though we find the distinctions of class frequently recognized and the offices absorbed by a limited number of gentlemen. Beyond this, little practical distinction existed. All were colony servants alike and suffered much the same exactions. Up to 1613 they were worked as hirelings of the company, receiving but a miserable support in lieu of their services. A portion of them, we have seen, then became tenants on the company's land on hard conditions of tenure. 1 Virginia Hist. Reg. I. 107 to 110, Rolfe's Relation, 1616, Purchas, Pilgrims, 1766, Hammer's Narrative, Purchas, His Pilgrimage, 837.
Purchase and the
VA.
Pilgrimage, there you go.
Correct. I. 65. The farms consisted of 3 acres, and the rental of a servant was 2 barrels and a half of corn. 2 Smith, Hist. of Virginia, I. 241.
Right.
Neal, London Co. 13. Early Settlement, Third Report of Royal Com. On History Manuscripts, up to 53. Arbor
Right.
Smith, 107, 122, 448, 486, 487, 6, Mitzrec VA. Others, through the influence of Dale, were induced to serve the colony in the building of Charles City and 3 years longer, on the promise of absolute freedom from the general and common servitude so much abhorred. They were allowed but a month in the year and a day in the week to provide for themselves, and were afterwards deprived of half of this time, so that they were forced, as they say, out of our daily tasks to redeem time wherein to labor for our sustenance, thereby miserably to purchase our freedom. 2. The favored Bermuda planters were finally given a charter of incorporation and enjoyed better terms, but were bound to the performance of certain duties for a limited time before they could have their freedom. 3. When Lord Delaware came in 1610 with fresh supplies, he thoroughly organized the colony as a labor force under commanders and overseers. 4. Dale afterwards applied a rigorous military system adopted from the Low Countries, and enforced it with great severity in carrying out his plans for establishing new plantations. The colonists were marched to their daily work in squads and companies under officers, and the severest penalties were prescribed for a breach of discipline or neglect of duty. A persistent neglect of labor was to be punished by galley service from 1 to 3 years. The colonists were marched to their daily work in squads and companies under 3. When Lord Delaware came in 1610 with fresh supplies, he thoroughly organized the colony as a labor force under commanders and overseers. 4. Dale afterwards applied a rigorous military system adopted from the Low Countries, and enforced it with great severity in carrying out his plans for establishing new plantations. The colonists were marched to their daily work in squads and companies under officers, and the severest penalties were prescribed for a breach of discipline or neglect of duty. A persistent neglect of labor was to be punished by galley service from 1 to 3 years. Penal servitude was also instituted. For petty offenses they worked as slaves in irons for a term of years. The planters affirm that there were continual whippings and extraordinary punishments, such as hanging, shooting, breaking on the wheel, and even burning alive, but it is likely they much exaggerated the state of affairs. The system at least proved salutary. Towns were built and Policol. Rec. Virginia, 68, 81. Stith, 132, Purchase, Pilgrims, 1766, Ol. Rec. Virginia, 75, 76. Having most of them served the colony 6 or 7 years in that general slavery. 3 VA. Hist. Reg. I. 109. Rolfe's Relation, 1616. 4 Lord Delaware's letter to the patentees in England, July 7, 1610, Hist. of Travail into Virginia Britannia, Introd, Hocklud. 8. And the colony was reduced to thorough order. 1. Under the arbitrary rule of Governor Argall the system was to some extent revived. 3 years slavery to the colony was the penalty for a violation of his edicts, and absence from church was punished with slavery from a week to a year and a day. 2. No freedom was granted from the common servitude until March, 1617, when the 3-year contract made by Dale with the men of Charles City Hundred had expired and they demanded their long-desired freedom from that general and common servitude. Governor Yardley willingly assented to this reasonable request, as they had now served the colony for 9 or 10 years. 3. No further extensive grant of freedom was made until he came as governor in 1619, bringing a proclamation of freedom to most of the ancient planters. Whenever it was obtained before this, it was only at an extraordinary payment, and throughout the first administration of Yardley and that of Argall the great majority of the colonists remained in their former condition, which the ancient planters with little exaggeration termed no way better than slavery. * Their rights as English. *OL. Rec. Virginia, 68, 69, 81, Force, 3, 1647, Laws, Gallen State Papers, Colonel 39. Dale's justification is to be found in the character of the colonists with whom he had to deal. Cf. Letter Dale to Salisbury, Brown, I. 506. 2 Ms. Rec. Virginia Co. 3, 143, for a number of these edicts. 2 instances may serve to illustrate the policy of her government. Goods were to be sold to the colonists from the magazine at 25% profit, while the price of tobacco was fixed at 3 shillings. A violation of this edict was punished with 3 years' servitude to the colony. Every person to go to church Sundays and holy days or lie neck and heel on the cord do guard the night following and be a slave the week following, 2nd offense a month, 3rd offense a year and a day. 3 Colonel Rec. Virginia, 77, Ms. Rec. VA, Co. 3, 142. 4 Colonel Rec. Virginia, 75, 78, 81. Good News from Virginia, 11, 21, 32 NA. D. The numerous letters sent by the Governor and General Assembly, 1621 to 1623, to prevent a re-establishment of Sir Thomas Smith's government in the company, while expressed in extravagant language, bear witness to the very A.R. Men, guaranteed by the first charter of the company, had practically no recognition before the arrival of Yardley. In 1618 the popular party in the Virginia Company triumphed over the court party, and Sir Thomas Smith was ousted from the governorship and Sir Edwin Sandys elected in his stead. An almost complete change of policy was the result. A new governor was sent in the person of Yardley to supplant the rapacious Argall. Yardley carried with his commission an important concession of rights to the Virginia planters. A new regime of freedom and representative government, coupled with full rights of private property in land and a responsible governorship, now began in the colony. Yardley
They
did
don't
not
have a
bring freedom
conscience,
to all the ancient
remember.
planters, but only to all those who
Like
had come
AI.
of their own charge previous to the departure of Dale in 1616, and to those who, sent at the company's charge, had already served the full time of their servitude to the colony. Many were, however, still retained in servitude until the end of their terms, and the company, until its dissolution in
That part, bro.
1624,
You
continued
know
to
it.
send others at the company's charge on terms of servitude modified to suit the changed conditions in the colony. We see, then,
I'm trying
that
to
the
hear.
colonist, while in theory only of arbitrary treatment of the colonists during the first 12 years of the company. Facts were attested by many persons who had been actual sufferers, and affirmed that many of those whose lives had been recklessly sacrificed were not of mean rank, as alleged by Smith and Alderman Johnson, but of ancient houses and
Right.
born to estates of 1,000 by the year, some
Mhm.
more, some less, who likewise perished by famine. Those who survived who had both adventured their estates and persons were constrained to serve the colony, as if they had been slaves,
Uh-oh.
7 or 8 years for their
What they
freedoms,
say?
who underwent
Y'all
as
heard
hard
it.
service and labors as the basest fellow that was brought out of Newgate.
Oh,
Rather than be reduced to live
we're
under
gonna get
like
tired, so
government,
we're gonna end
they
soon.
say, we desire his majesty that commissioners
Yeah,
may be
meeting at
sent
8.
over with authority to hang us. Winder Manuscripts, I. 47 to 52. C. Affibid, 30, and Ms. Rec. Virginia Co. 3, 1 Mac. October. Virginia member of the London Company, and entitled to equal rights and
Equal rights
privileges
and
with other
privileges.
members or adventurers, was,
Mm.
from the nature of the case, practically debarred from exercising these rights. As a planter absent in Virginia, he could not sit nor have a voice in the councils of the company. He was entirely dependent on the company's good faith for the performance of its obligations, and had recourse to no means to enforce their performance. He was kept by force in the colony, and could have no communication with his friends in England. His letters were intercepted by the company and could be destroyed if they contained anything to the company's discredit. He was completely at the mercy of the edicts of arbitrary governors, and was forced to accept whatever abridgment of his rights and contracts seemed good to the governor and the company. His true position was that of a common servant working in the interest of a commercial company. In lieu of his support, or of his transportation and support, he was bound to the service of this company for a term of years. Under the arbitrary
no
administration of the company and of its deputy governors, he was
Right.
as absolutely at its disposal as a servant at his master's.
Mm-mm-mm.
His conduct was regulated by corporal punishment or more extreme measures. He could be hired out by the company to
Dang, I
private
need some of
persons,
them maps,
or
sis.
by the governor for his personal advantage. Suggested by the policy of the company, there gradually grew up after the year 1616 and the establishment
I
of
tried,
separate
sis.
plantations,
I love you
the
guys.
practice on the part of societies of planters, and later of private persons, of transporting servants to settle and work their lands very much on the same conditions. Not till winter of 1616 to 17 was any freedom to return to England given to the Virginia colonists. Colonel Rec of Virginia, of service as those made by the company. This developed, as property began to be acquired by the planters generally, into the common mode of transporting servants on contracts by indenture for a limited time of service, varying in individual cases according to the terms of the contract too.
Mhm.
In 1619, under the new governor of the company, an important modification was
Governor of
introduced
the
regarding its
company,
servants in Virginia
not
and
the
colonists
state.
who should be afterwards transported at
Governor
the
of the
common charge.
company.
The plan instituted by Dale of making a part of the colonists farmers or tenants at a fixed rent, and other servants on a large tract of land for the company's use, had worked successfully in raising revenues for the government, and the company now
Raise the revenue
proposed,
for the
by an
government.
extension of this experiment, to relieve the
What
colonists.
an experiment. Relieving the
Forever of all
colonists.
taxes and public bird hens, by setting apart large tracts of public land to be worked by a system of tenantship at halves. Such a system had been commended to Governor Argall in 1617, and orders had been issued setting apart various tracts of land, but the provisions were not carried out until the governorship of Yardley, when tracts of 3,000 acres were set apart in each of the 4 boroughs, and a special tract of like size was reserved for the governor at Jamestown.
A good part too.
These were for the General of Virginia Co-Rec 2, 32, 41, 42, 196. 2. It is impossible to say just when the first actually indented servants were introduced into Virginia. They became a distinct class after 1619, and formal indentures were probably in use that year applying to servants sent to the planters. The Assembly of 1619 provided that all contracts of servants should be recorded and enforced. Whether indentures had been used by the company or private persons previous to this is not clear. They seem to have been applied to the company's tenants after 1619. The manuscript records of the company contain a reference, under the date 1622, to a boy's indenture, and it is probable indentures were used in 1619. A registry was kept of persons transported in the company's ships, but those sent otherwise by private persons were not included in it until 1622, when so much trouble had been occasioned by verbal contracts that the company's bookkeeper was required henceforth to register all contracts for service. Colonel Rec. 21, 28, Virginia Co-Rec. 2, 17, 23. Revenue of the government. Other tracts of half the size, called borough lands, were given as common lands to each borough for the support of their particular magistrates and officers and of all other charges. For endowing a university and college 10,000 acres were allotted in the territory of Henrico. 1 men were to be placed on the land as tenants at halves on contract to remain there 7 years, returning half the profits of their labor to the company and enjoying the other half themselves. They were apportioned as the revenues to be raised demanded, and increased from time to time. Within less than a year 500 persons were sent on these terms. 2. Not only were the old public offices, such as the governors and secretaries, to be thus supported by the allotment of a fixed number of tenants, which must be kept intact by successive incumbents, but whenever a new office was created or any project of public importance undertaken, this became the common mode of ensuring its support. 3. By a special application of the English system of apprenticeship, well established in England after the Statute of Apprentices of Elizabeth, 1563, which put a premium upon agricultural apprenticeship, an attempt was made to round out this tenantship and ensure its perpetuity. 100 poor boys and girls who were about to starve in the streets of London were sent in 1619, by the aid of the mayor and council of the city, to be bound to the tenants for a term of years, at the end of which they were to become themselves. 1. Instructions to Governor Yardley, 1618, Virginia History Mag, October, 1894, 155, 156, 158, 159.
Still slaves on the book. That's why they taking our names, sis. To get your shit.
Washington, Virginia Rec. Cap. 23, 221, p. 7. Ibid. Ms. Rec. 3. The support of the East India School, of the iron works and of a glass furnace was to be provided for on the same plan. Tenants at halves on the public lands, with an allowance of stock and corn to begin with. Industrial apprenticeship was also provided for to encourage trade and to stop the excessive planting of tobacco.
Certificates of participation,
the term was usually
articles
limited
of
to 7
incorporation.
years, or in the case of girls, upon marriage or becoming of age. Apprentices soon began to be disposed of to the planters on their reimbursing the company for the charges of their outfit and transportation, and the records in several cases suggest a suspicion of speculation. 1. The intent was probably to establish a kind of métayer system, though the tenant was at liberty at the expiration of his term to remove to any other place at his own will and pleasure. It was supposed that the terms were sufficiently advantageous to induce him to enter into further contracts for successive periods of 7 years. The success of the earlier plan introduced by Dale led the company to hope not only for the support of the government, but for large returns in excess, and the design was to make it a permanent and certain source of all the necessary revenues. It was frustrated, however, by the maladministration of the system and the part of the government and officers. The tenants were frequently seated on remote and barren lands, or defrauded in their contracts, being taken from their places and hired by the year to planters, so that almost from the beginning, the system was a failure, and instead of providing a revenue, it was not even self-supporting. The public tenants were particularly neglected in favor of those belonging to the officers, and several propositions were made at differ 1 Cal. SP, Colonel 19, Neil, London Co., 160, Note, 161, 235, Cunningham, 2, 42, Robinson Ms., 68, Ms. Rec. Virginia Co., 3, 162, Virginia Co. Rec. I, 25, 36, 39, 40-42, 91, 97, 100, 124, 140, 169. 2 Force, 3, number 5, 14.15, Virginia Co. Rec. I, 40-42, Henning, I, 230. Though the company was forced by the City of London to grant exceptional terms to tenants who had been formerly apprentices, by assigning them at the expiration of their tenantship a land grant of 25 acres in fee, yet it stipulated,
here go they 40
for the
acres in the
privilege of
mule. Did y'all
re-engaging
hear
them
that?
for further
Listen,
terms if the tenant
we
freely
talked about this
consented.
the other day. We read it in the other book, showing the same exact thing with the pioneers men. Listen, here go they 40 acres in the damn mule.
The system was a failure, and instead of providing a revenue, it was not even self-supporting. The public tenants were particularly neglected in favor of those belonging to the
black
officers,
natives.
and several propositions were made at differ 1 Cal.
Here we
SP,
go.
Colonel
Listen,
19,
coming up.
Neil, London Co., 160, Note, 161, 235, Cunningham, 2, 42, Robinson Ms., 68, Ms. Rec. Virginia Co., 3, 162, Virginia Co. Rec. I, 25, 36, 39, 40-42, 91, 97, 100, 124, 140, 169. 2 Force, 3, number 5, 14.15, Virginia Co. Rec. I, 40-42, Henning, I, 230. Though the company was forced by the City of London to grant exceptional terms to tenants who had been formerly apprentices, by assigning them at the expiration of their tenantship a land grant of 25 acres in fee, yet it stipulated, for the privilege of re-engaging them for further terms if the tenant freely consented, and times for a change in the terms of tenantship, but it was never effective.
Change on it, but that's it.
The system practically came to an end with the dissolution of the company in 1624, but even as late as 1642 some few tenants remained, showing that the company's plan of renewal of terms had been practiced. 1. It had degenerated by this time into the payment of a fixed rent or into planting for the benefit of the owner. 2. The growth of a class of strictly indented servants was also a factor in the failure of this tenantship. Servants were much less costly, and rapidly became more profitable. 350 servants were sent to serve the public in 1619.
That's just shut down too, guys. Blacked out 3 years ago.
To be disposed of among the old planters, which they exceedingly desire, and will pay the company their charges with very great thanks.
Where they put it? Who got it?
Men had been selected with great care, but the company was unfortunate in being forced by the repeated orders of King James to add a number of dissolute persons whom he was determined, by the exercise.
I'm gonna stop this share and show y'all what we're gonna be getting into. We're gonna get into some of this information again tomorrow in part 2. In this next document, when I say y'all gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is how it all began, the preambles, all this crap. We're just gonna stop sharing this. I'm gonna let y'all still listen to this one while I show you what we'll be going over tomorrow.
The mere prerogative to remove from England as an undesirable class. 5x Virginia Co-Rec. I. 117, 169, 173, Smith, 2, 40, 106, 107, Virginia Co-Rec Ms. 3, 161, 163, 166, 170, July 5, 1621, VA. History Reg. L. 159, Hen. I. 230, Upt. 8th Report Royal Commander on History MSS, points 2 and 3, 39-44. Geo Sandys, March 30th, 1623, writes to his brother, Sir Samuel Sandys, the tenants sent on that so absurd condition of haps were neither able to sustain themselves nor to discharge their moiety, and so dejected with their scarce provisions and finding nothing to answer their expectations, that most of them gave themselves over and died of melancholy, the rest running so far in debt as left them still behindhand, and many, not seldom, losing their crops while they hunted for their belly. Cf. Nichols to Wersenyalm, p. 41. 2 Robinson Miss, 188. 3 Virginia Co-Rec, I. 87, Ms. IMD, 3, 171, Neal, London Co., 230, Force, 3, 14. The average cost of a tenant was 16, of a servant £6. 4 Virginia Co-Rec, I. 67, 83. 5 Stith, 165, 167, 368, Neal, London Co., 163, VA. Co-Rec, I. 25, 26, 33, 34. The company was ordered to send the men pressed in November, 1619, but it postponed doing so for nearly 2 months, in the hope of being relieved of the necessity. The new life which began in Virginia in the year 1619 greatly encouraged industry and husbandry and led to a large increase of independent proprietaries in a few years. Special inducements were offered by large grants of land and exceptional privileges to associations of planters and adventurers for the establishing of separate plantations. Liberal grants were also made to tradesmen and to members of the company in proportion to their shares. To encourage immigration, additional grants were made to them for every person transported to the colony in the next 7 years. A large number of servants and tenants was needed on these plantations, and for some time the importation by private carried persons was larger than that by the company. 2 In 1619 the number of tenants and servants was sufficiently large to make necessary some regulation of the future conditions of their servitude by law. The first General Assembly of Virginia held in that year gave legal sanction and recognition to the servitude by the passage of special enactments providing for the recording and strict performance of all contracts between master and servant. The right of free marriage was limited in the case of female servants, and servants in v. general were prohibited from trade with the Indians. Corporal punishment was provided as a penalty in cases where a free man suffered fine unless the master remitted the fine, and a general discretionary power was given to the governor and council for regulation of other cases. 3 Import unity of the king, however, compelled it to yield. 100 persons had been included in the first order, but it is probable that only half of these were sent to Virginia, and they were allowed to be selected. The Somers Island Company probably yielded to the request of the Virginia Company and took the rest. Collingwood Ms. I. 47. A Virginia History Mag. 160, 162, 164, October, 1894, Col. Rec BA, 78, 81, Virginia Co-Rec, I, 39, 2, 124, 128, 196. IMD, I, 123, 137, 148, 153, 154, 161, 2, 148, 150. In the 4 years 1619 to 2344 patents were issued to as many different people for the transportation of 100 persons each to Virginia. In the 12 years preceding, only 6 patents had been granted. 3 Colonel Rec VA, 1, 21, 24, 25, 28, laws, 1619. The main principles on which the institution of servitude was based were by this time clearly developed, and its growth henceforth consisted in the gradual addition of incidents originating in customs peculiar to colonial conditions, which, recognized by judicial decisions, became fixed in local customary law, or by the enactment of special statutes, were established as a part of the statutory law. Chapter 2. Indented Servitude. 1. In the policy of the London Company towards its colonists during the first 12 years, we have seen the beginning and gradual development of an idea which, adopted and amplified by the later government of the company and in the administration of Virginia as a royal colony, grew into the system here called indented servitude, which throughout the colonial period was widely extended in all the American colonies and became an important factor in their economic and social development. Gradually, and not always consciously, it was formed into a hard and fixed system, in some respects analogous to the later institution of slavery, from which, however, it was always broadly distinguished both in social custom and in law. The servitude thus developed was limited and conditional. With respect to its origin, it was of 2 kinds, resting on distinct principles. First, voluntary servitude, based on free contract with the London Company or with private persons for definite terms of service, in consideration of the servant's transportation and maintenance during servitude. Second, involuntary servitude, where legal authority condemned a person to a term of servitude judged necessary for his reformation or prevention from an idle course of life, or as a reprieve from other punishment for misdemeanors already committed. Though involuntary on the part of the servant, this kind won the term indented servitude has been used as the one best characteristic of the system at large. Strictly indented servants not only formed the largest class, but gave legal definiteness to the system of white servitude. Involved a contract between the authority imposing the sentence and the person that undertook the transportation of the offender, one, and the master's right to service resting upon the terms of this contract made or assigned to him was practically on the same footing as involuntary servitude. The great body of servants was comprised in the former class. They were free persons, largely from England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland, who wished to go to the colony as settlers to better their condition, but were too poor to bear the charges of their transportation. 2. They consequently entered into a voluntary contract with anyone that would assume these charges and their maintenance for such a term of years as would repay the outlay, placing themselves for this limited time at the disposal of the person for any reasonable service. The contract was made in Great Britain with resident planters or the agents of colonists, but more frequently with shipmasters who traded in Virginia and disposed of the servant on their arrival as they saw fit. The agreement was by deed indented, and hence arose the term indented servants. 8. This class of so-called kids was one. The right to the stipulated term of servitude was given to anyone that would contract for the servant's transportation, and he seems to have had free disposal of this right when he reached Virginia. Virginia Co-Rec, I, 91, 2, 10, 11, ENG Statutes at Large, 4 Geo, C2, Anson, 7, 43. This was probably in England a contract of record. Jefferson's Works, 9, 254 square, Jones, Present State, 53, 54. 8 Neal, Virginia Carol Orem, 57, Note. An indenture of 1628, made after assignments of contracts were recognized in Virginia, may be taken as typical of those generally in use. A husbandman of Surrey County, England, contracts, and binds himself to a citizen and ironmonger of London to continue the obedient servant of him. The said Edward heard his heirs and assigns, and so by him or them sente transported unto the country and land of Virginia in the parts beyond the seas to be by him or them employed upon his plantation therefore and during the space of 4 years, and will be tractable and obedient and a good and faithful servant, honest to be in all such things as ball be commanded him, in consideration whereof the said Edward Hurd doth covenant that he will transport and furnish to the said logwood to and for Virginia aforesaid, and allow unto him sustenance, meat and drink, apparel, and other necessaries for his livelihood and sustenance during the said service, sealed and delivered in the presence of 2 servants, supplemented by a smaller class of persons who went on agreements for fixed wages for a definite time. The other large class was supplied chiefly from English paupers, vagrants, and dissolute persons sent under the arbi/contrary exercise of royal prerogative or by court sentences, and later by the action of English penal statutes. In the earlier years it included a large number of poor children from the counties and towns of England, who were sent to apprenticeship on easy conditions. 1. The penal regulations of the colony up to the year 1642 tended also to recruit this class. 8. A very large number of the convicts sent to the American plantations were political and not social criminals. Of the Scotch prisoners taken at the Battle of Worcester 1610 were sent to Virginia in 1651. 2 years later, Irish Tories were sent, and in 1685 a number of the followers of Monmouth that had escaped the cruelties of Jeffreys. Many of the Scotch prisoners of Dunbar and of the rebels of 1666 were sent to New England 5 and the other plantations. As early as 1611, Governor Dale, anxious to fill out the number of 2,000 men for establishing military posts along James River,
like Lincoln,
had recommended that all convicts from the common jails be kept up for 3 years. They are not always, he said, the worst kind of men, either for birth, spirit, or body, and would be glad to escape a just sentence and make this their new country, and plant therein with all diligence, cheerfulness, and comfort. This request passed unheeded, and the earliest 1 gallon state papers, domestic, 584, Stith, 168. Blackstone, 137, note, 401 and note, Reeves, 598. 1. The servitude for offenses, early instituted by the governors and continued by the courts, can hardly be regarded as properly a part of the system, however. It was strict penal servitude in the interest of the commonweal. These convicts were not held by the colonists, but employed on public works as servants of the colony, or in service to the governor in his official capacity, except in specific cases. Robinson, Ms. 2, 12, 13, 65, Virginia Go. Ms. Rec. 3, 215, 224. C.F. Henning, I. 351, 2, 119, 441, 3, 277. Asterisk Massachusetts History Coll. Volume 9, 2, Dale to Salisbury. Introduction of any of the criminal class seems to have been in 1618, when a man convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to be hanged was reprieved, because he was a carpenter and the plantation needed carpenters. 1. In the early years of the 17th century England suffered, particularly in her border counties, from a number of malefactors whom it was impossible to bring to justice. Magistrates and most of the gentlemen of the counties countenanced them, and even had them in their employ for private ends. Many schemes were proposed to the king for remedying the evil and compelling the justices and officers to perform
I might
their
get
duty.
into that tomorrow.
Transportation had been made use of before, and the king now proposed to send the offenders to Virginia. 2. From 1618 to 1622 a number came, but the large increase was in the latter half of the century. In 1653, an order of the Council of State appointed a committee concerning the transportation of vagrants to the foreign plantations. In 166, another committee was appointed to further the sending of people, and power was given to justices of the peace to transport felons, beggars, and disorderly persons.
Period.
8 sufficient numbers had been sent under this power, and by the transportation of political offenders, to furnish ringleaders for an attempt to subvert the government in 1663. In consequence of this and the danger of the continued importation of great numbers of these wicked villains, the General Court, upon the petition of the counties of Gloucester and Middlesex, issued an order prohibiting any further importation of them after the 20th of January. 1671 * through the influence of Lord Arlington, this order 1 Ibid, L. Middlesex Rec. 224. Others were granted reprieves earlier on condition of transportation, but it is probable that they went elsewhere than Virginia. Sir Thomas Smith was governor of the East India Company at this time. 2 Surtees SOC, Volume 68, 419, 420, Upt, Bacon, Essay on Plantations. 3 Calories State Papers, Kernel 28, 441, C.F. Ashley, Economic History ENG, 366.
James, thanks so much for the cash out, brother. Your support is so appreciated.
1,672.
Yes, yes, I am from Chi-Town, Chicago,
5,
baby.
52.
Born and raised.
2, 191. Rob. Ms. 8, 67. Was confirmed in England and was made to apply to the other American colonies as well as to Virginia.
Much love, brother.
1. A strict system of search was applied to every ship that entered Virginia ports, and for the next half-century the colony had a respite from this class of newgaters and jailbirds. 2. Their transportation was now diverted to the West Indies, but this proved so ineffectual in putting a stop to petty felonies that in the 4th year of George I, 1717, Parliament passed a statute over the most vigorous protests from the Virginia merchants in London, making the American colonies practically a reformatory and a dumping ground for the felons of England. 8. In 1766 the benefits of this act were extended to include Scotland, though Benjamin Franklin, on the part of Pennsylvania, memorialized Parliament against it, and in 1768 the more speedy transportation of felons was ordered. * The practice was only stopped by the War of the Revolution.
That's right.
The preamble of the Act of 1779 significantly remarks Tiad, whereas the transportation of felons to His Majesty's American colonies is attended with many difficulties, they are now to be sent to other parts beyond the sea, whether situate in America or not.
What?
5.
What?
They were finally disposed of in convict galleys or sent to the new penal colonies in use. The preamble of the Act of 1779 significantly remarks Tiad, whereas the transportation of felons to His Majesty's American colonies is attended with many difficulties, they are now to be sent to other parts beyond the sea, whether situate in America or not. 5. They were finally disposed of in convict galleys or sent to the new
Scallywag
penal colonies in New South Wales or at Botany Bay. 6. Virginia, contrary to some of the colonies, never favored the importation of this class. They were seldom reformed, and their room was held much more desirable than their company, says Jones. 7. Many attempts were made to pre-1 Cal State Papers, 242, Tech. Gen LCT, 52. 2 Rec Gen LCT, APL. 6. 1672, 52. 3 Geo. I. C11, Statutes at Large, Virginia Manuscripts FRBRO, Volume 2,
Statutes at Large.
PT2, P 579. 46 Geo 3, C32, Ford, Works of Franklin, Volume X, 120, 8 Geo 3, C15.
Well, then we just read in the book the
5,
other day. I don't remember which one. I've been doing so much reading with you guys. One of the books had in there the information on who the first president was, and it was talking about the indigenous guy. Remember? What was his name? Y'all know his name. I can't think. Remember? We read it in the book.
GOIH, C74. 6 Lecky, England in the
I hate
18th
I can remember
century,
stuff like that.
6, 254.
Mm-mm-mm.
7 Jones, present state, 53, 54, Beverly, 233, VA. Verges.
Mhm.
Vent their coming by the imposition of heavy duties, but they were not finally and
Hobos.
effectually prohibited until I-788. 1. The ability given the states to lay a tax of $10 on all persons imported was incorporated into the Constitution of the United States, mainly through the
No,
efforts of
sis, I'm gonna
George
check it
Mason
out though. Let me write that
of
down.
Virginia, and was partly
So
designed to
when I
keep
come,
out
I can see.
convicts. 2. From this attitude of the colony, it probably received a much smaller number than some of the other colonies.
Dirty.
3. Another important source of involuntary servitude was found in the practice of spiriting, which grew up in
Thank
the
you,
reign of
sis.
Charles I
I'm
and
look into that
continued
when I go
throughout the
up there. Too.
Commonwealth period and the reign of Charles II.
Mm-hmm.
It was an organized system
All
of
us.
kidnapping
It's all us.
persons, young and old, usually cf. the laboring classes, and transporting them to the plantations to be sold for the benefit of the kidnapper or shipmaster to whom they were assigned. 4. It became widely extended in England, but Bristol and London
Yep.
were the centers of the traffic.
All they did was add themselves
Throughout
to our
London and the
Bible.
parishes of Middlesex County, its agents,
People want to say
called
that.
spirits
Hold
were
on.
distributed,
I'll
men
rewind
and
this
women,
part. Hold on,
yeomen.
guys.
It was an organized system. 4. It became
Okay.
widely extended.
A lot of people mistake and say, "Oh, get rid of the Bible." Da da da. That's their Bible. Listen, that's our shit. Like, come on, y'all. Everything comes from us, including that Bible. It's our Bible, and all it is our history records. If read it, y'all got to read it and see what's going on in there. They added themselves to our Bible. That's what they did. We had our own Bibles. There's the Ethiopian Bible, there was the Cherokee Bible, Iroquois, Elliott Bible. All these Bibles belonging to the land people. Ethiopian Bible, they still have their original text. They're the only ones I think that have their original text. Everybody else, their Bible has been changed and taken the name. Y'all don't remember how y'all ancestors, your grandmother, your great grandmother would write your name down in the Bible. They would write down everybody's name, information. That's what happened. It's all our records, y'all, from our tribes and our nations. So what they did was add themselves in, just like they added themselves into our information on the names, on the Social Security cards, taking our records, everything, so they can get into our mineral rights, our records, and stealing everything. Everything has to do with that. Literally. Don't let nobody tell you, throw out the Bible, get rid of it. I know people, listen, throw out religion. Get rid of religion. Don't get rid of the Bible. That's your damn history. That's our shit, period. Don't let nobody fool y'all with nothing different. When you put the religion on it, that's when you get twisted. But if you know how to read it, if you got discernment, if you got your ancestor cells lit up inside you so that you see the shit, it ain't no question. We're going to get ready to get out of here in a few minutes, guys. I'm going to finish up this last page.
In England, but Bristol and London were the centers of the traffic. Throughout London and the parishes of Middlesex County, its agents, called spirits / were distributed, men and women, yeomen, tradesmen, doctors, and a class of rogues and idlers who earned a livelihood by this means.
That's why I tell y'all got to go through the township to get your shit paid, y'all.
1 Virginia manuscripts FRBRO 1697, p. 320, 1723, 1729, March 26th, Henning, 12, 668. CF3 251, v. 24, 546.
I'm telling you,
Two
they keep
Madison
playing with y'all
Papers,
mind.
Volume 3, 1430, Article I, Sector 9, Constitution of U.S. Lodge, Colonies, 242, Lecky, 6, 254 SQ. Franklin's Works, X, 119. 4 Middlesex Records, 3, 38, 94.
I might pull those up tomorrow too. Some of the Middlesex records, New York.
The offense, when discovered, which was probably not true of 1 in 20 cases, was treated with remarkable leniency by the courts.
Don't worry about it.
Under the civil law, would have been punished with death. But we meet with petty fines of a few shillings, even when the spirit confessed the crime, and in one case only 12d, a few hours in the pillory, or imprisonment till the fine was paid seems to have been considered by the judges a sufficient atonement.
That's right.
The session rolls of Middlesex show that a large number of the cases were not even brought to trial, though true bills had been brought against the offenders. 5 Middlesex Rec. 2. 306, 326, 335, 336, 3, 100,
right.
184, 229, 253, 257, 259, 271, 326, and C. 4, 40,
Middlesex
70 to
Record
87, 245, Cal State Papers. Bristol, were not beneath the suspicion of profiting by this lucrative business. All manner of pretenses were used to decoy the victims aboard ships lying in the Thames or to places where they could be assaulted and forcibly conveyed on board, to be disposed of to the ship's company or to merchants. 1. The practice first arose in connection with the West India plantations. Barbados and other island plantations probably received a much greater number than the American colonies. 2. We find a case belonging to Virginia as early as 1644 *. In 1664 the abuse had grown so bad that tumults were frequently raised in the streets of London. It was only necessary to point the finger at a woman and call her a common spirit to raise a riot against her. The Lord Mayor and Aldermen of London, and a number of merchants, planters, and shipmasters, sent petitions urging the establishment of a registry office to put an end to the practice. 4. The office was established in September of that year, and was to register all covenants and issue certificates to the merchants. 5. The penalty for not registering any person who was to be transported as a servant was 20, and the consent of friends or relatives in person at the office was necessary for the transportation of anyone under 12 years of age, and good reasons had to be shown for such transportation. Even these strict regulations failed to stop the practice, and in 1670 it was necessary to resort to Parliament to prevent the abuse by imposing as a penalty death without benefit of clergy. 61 IMD 449, Virginia Ms. FRBR, X, 1640 to 91, 172 Middlesex Rec, Volume 3, 276, 4, 65, 69 to 73, 78, 79, 155, 196, 245. 3 Virginia Manuscripts FR The British Record Office, Volume I, 46. Of State Papers, Calendar, 411.
Transport. Yes, it's all about sex
457.
trafficking. Transport,
4 Gallant
sex
State
trafficking.
Papers, Colonel 220, Middlesex Rec, 4, 181.
Middlesex.
Arcal State Papers, Colonel 221, 232. The office had been proposed in 1660. 6. This and the lessened demand for servants was sufficient to put an end to the abuse. Further technical distinctions arose in law determined by the title under which servitude was due. Thus, where verbal contracts alone existed, or where it was specially stipulated for, servitude according to the custom took place, and the servant was held for the customary term, whatever it might be, unless a contract was proved.
Peace, y'all. We went into some info. I wanted to go over a couple of more things, but I am a little bit tired. I'm going to definitely try to come back tomorrow with part 2 of this. It's been very informative for you guys to be able to really see this and tie it together. This is all I'll be doing. Be trying to tie it together so you guys can actually see like the outline. You know how they create the theatrics? I try to create the theatrics and y'all might bring y'all the information so y'all can just read the story and see the real truth. Like, there it is. There it is. There it is. Yeah. So definitely going to be on this same thing. I'm actually wanted to go in. One of the things I'm going to go into today, I don't know if I'll try to pull it into the portion of part 2 tomorrow. This is the 4 Kings of Canada. I told you guys I was going to definitely show you some more information about Canada. So I'll definitely try and bring that in tomorrow. Yeah, peace, love, and bliss. You guys are everything. Like literally, like you're the world. The world is built around you, about you, from you. Like literally, everything that you are is everything that they want to damn be. And knowing that we are the ones that have everything that is in our power and control, including these people that are doing sorcery to control our land, literally walking on the heads of our ancestors buried underground, got a whole village, a sovereign damn African town in South Carolina. How dare these people? I mean, it's getting more and more absurd. So we got to find things that anybody watch a Salem series on Netflix? I don't have Netflix, sis. I'll check it out if I can, though. Maybe I don't do too much TV. But yeah, we got to make sure that we know who we are. Let these people know who we are. Make sure we're using our inner strength and our power to come out, up, and above all of this nonsense. You understand me? Because we are so much better than this. Everything is about you. Nothing can move without you. You are literally the movers and shakers of this entire planet. Literally your breath of life. Why they talking about carbon emission? If it wasn't for your carbon emission, they ass wouldn't be able to breathe. Listen to me. Think I'm playing with y'all. So trust me when I tell you this. So you're everything. Nothing is better than you. Yeah. Just want y'all to know. Y'all the best of everything. Peace, love, and bliss to everybody. You guys, I'm definitely gonna take a rest. I got a meeting at 8:00. And yeah, I'll be back tomorrow for sure with part 2, or either either or. Y'all know so much stuff. Maybe I'll try and do the other build I want to go into, and we'll do this another time. I try to keep y'all on track as much as possible, not to be all over the place like I am in my head. I got 50,000 things in my head right now. I might talk to y'all about 2 or 3. So yeah, it get deep. But we're gonna see how it go tomorrow. What my head hit me with, what the spirits tell me to lead with, whatever it do, that's what it do. Y'all already know I can plan one thing and the whole thing something different the whole hour later, because I go with what it's supposed to be, not what I want it to be. And that's how we're supposed to operate. Peace, love, and bliss to all. I'm trying to shout out everybody in the chat, leaving message. You guys are best. You guys are everything. I appreciate you guys as well. Always coming in with good information, good energy, being respectful with each other, acting like real kin folks. Like we come in here like we at a cookout or some shit. We enjoy ourselves over here. There's never any drama. We don't have problems. Everybody in the chat knows somebody come with some BS or some nonsense. I ain't even got to tell y'all nothing. Get rid of their ass. Listen, we already know how to operate over here with peace, love, energy, good spirit, and all that. Yes. Okay. So y'all, I will chat with you guys tomorrow. As I said, peace, love, and bliss to everybody. Your girl is out. Right. None of that, people. Right.